Good morning. Oh. Can you hear me?
Are you there, Zach?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. I was going for the phrase of 2020 to 2022 is you're on mute. So I was really waiting. You know how it goes. Well, thanks for taking the time this morning. It's been an interesting last week or so with the legislature and everything that's transpired and how everything's going. I'll give you guys some brief updates here, and then we can talk about anything that you guys have some questions, comments, concerns. We'll tell you ahead of time that when it comes to the meetings that are transpiring at this point in time, it's pretty much just within the Democratic Party leadership. They're just telling us what happened. So we're doing our best to throw our 10 cents in. They might give us 2 cents every now and then. So let's start with some of the firearms bills. Number one, the high capacity magazine bill, Senate Bill 5078 did pass. And the issue with this bill, I mean, specifically even in the analysis, they're talking about how they know it's unconstitutional. They don't think they should do it. So what they did is they went after the commerce around, trade, sale, transfer. And they're going from that commerce perspective, just making it really difficult to even do anything with these. I think that there will be lawsuits, challenges to this bill. The fact that they put it through commerce makes that process much more burdensome in terms of evidentiary pursuit of this. I mean, you have to say, well, it's illegal under commerce, and that's harder to prove than the Second Amendment kind of deal. So we'll see what happens with that. And there's just some issues just in general. Like how the heck do you even track it? So how do they know if you went over state lines and got 100 of these things or 200 of these things? Or I tell you, every gun store in Washington is going to sell out within the next very short period of time. So that'll be interesting. And they acknowledge that it's not going to do anything to curb gun violence. So that can go on to the second one here, which is 1630. And that's talking about weapons, prohibited weapons specifically in certain public meeting locations. And that bill passed and passed concurrence. They talk about, if you have a meeting with a public board, anything from, school board, sewer board, county commissioners board, whatever it might be in a location, the open carry of firearms is prohibited. And what's interesting about it is there are exemptions. If you have a concealed carry permit, you can conceal carry a pistol or a firearm that you can hide. Law enforcement is exempted. The issue with this, just in general, I mean, it's more restrictive. They kind of supersede, preempt your local authorities where you can and can't carry firearms. But also there's some really big questions around this thing, specifically as, well, let's say there's a Grange Hall and they hold a sewer board meeting there. It's not exactly specific regarding how long is that now a free zone or an open carry free zone. So it's not necessarily a gun free zone or a weapon free zone. It's just a open carry free zone. And then there's the question around what is actually considered a weapon. They've got some definitions of things in there, but is a baseball bat a weapon? Is a pocket knife? I mean, I would venture to say that many of the people in your jurisdiction carry a pocket knife. I do every day. Is that considered a weapon? And you can see it out of my pocket. Is that now open carry? So there's a lot of issues around that one as well. And I don't know if there's going to be challenges to that. There probably will be, but in terms of a legal challenge, we'll have to see if there's enough there, for the powers that be, NRA and others to challenge that one, as opposed to, the high capacity magazine. If they have to pick, they're going to go after the high capacity mags. Moving on to GMA stuff. The good thing about the growth management side of things is the legislators, for the most part, just because they couldn't agree on anything, have pretty much removed any of the climate change or most of the climate change language out of the conversation. House Bill 1099 that was one of their big climate change and GMA bills. Basically, they changed it so much that they didn't concur on it. So unless they change their mind, coming out of the House here, the House refused to concur. And so unless the House changes their mind, that bill's dead, which is good for us. It was never really awesome for us, even after they changed it. And the proponents of it, basically they removed all the things that they really wanted. So now they're not really in favor of it. So they're just going to say, yeah, I think they're going to not really move on with that one. In terms of the other GMA bills, Representative Short's bill 5275, which is talking about enhancing opportunity in limited areas of more intense rural development. That bill did pass, and 1241, which is growth management planning, did pass. Again, they watered them down to the point, not necessarily where it's innocuous, but it was more clarification and really targeted more towards the larger counties, and we didn't get caught up in these too terribly much. A couple of the other ones that were a good, Senator Warnick's 5624, which was the livestock inspection fees, the brand inspection fees, extending that for another year as opposed to increasing the fees. That one passed, which is good for us. And we can go on to the budget. It sounds like they have the transportation, the operating and the capital budget basically cooked. Again, this is kind of that conversation that, we're really not on the inside of. With what they're trying to do, I mean, the state's made more money this year than they've ever made. They're trying to transfer from the operating budget to the capital and the transportation budget, which will require some Republican support. So these last few days are going to be pretty interesting. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that these firearms bills passed just in general, because that will probably dig in a lot of the Republican side here, any of that Republican support. So some of the questions we've been asked here are specifically around transportation and, looking at the Public Works Assistance Fund and relation to MOTCA and this whole kerfluffle around Washington State thinking somehow that they're going to be able to charge a tax to neighboring states for their fuel that comes through this state. There's a little bit of conversation around that, like they knew that wasn't going to go over well, and that was their pathway to, hey, we're going to do this super extreme thing. Oh, darn, it didn't work. Let's do some funny stuff with MOTCA and the Public Works Assistance Fund. That's just, scuttlebutt is kind of thinking maybe that's what they had in mind all along. Of course, Phi and Leas were, completely oblivious to any of that stuff all the way through. And people aren't real excited about what Representative Phi is doing right now, just in general. Kind of oblivious has been the term that has been used. Like, gosh, did he read anything? So we're just kind of right now at the whim of majority leadership. They're trying to figure out within their party what they can get done. They're also trying to figure out what kind of votes they can pull their direction. So in Lincoln County, Commissioner Hutzel has been working for a long time with the Public Works Board, and they have drafted on numerous occasions. I mean, it's basically a constitutional amendment that would isolate those funds for the Public Works Assistance Fund and account, make it so the state couldn't sweep it and take it into education or transportation or whatever the heck they want, because it's a really appealing fund. Because when you borrow money from that fund, you pay it back to that fund with a very small amount of interest, and then the fund grows, which is great for the counties to be able to use that for public works. And there's a conversation held 2 days ago now with Speaker Jenkins to that effect. And long story short, what the result of the meeting was is Commissioner Hutzel said, I wasted an hour of my life, and she just doesn't get it. What they do get is that there's a lot of money in that account, and for years to come, there's money coming in. So the legislature is going, well, hey, we're going to take that and put it towards transportation. It's transportation dollars anyway. So they're not real motivated, even when we have this much revenue, to let us have our money. So one of the conversations I think that might be beneficial to have over this interim is really push on maybe trying to get some legitimate support, and real conversations around this constitutional amendment that would let us keep that money in the fund, especially since that's what it's for, because that's a huge asset for us. Part of the other conversations that we're having right now around 0.09 money is not really looking good for us, and that's going to cause some issues for a lot of the counties that maybe have bonded against that money. We're still waiting to hear back. We're trying to educate the legislators and say, hey, this really is a big deal for us, and this was a promise that it was going to be here, and now it's not. So that would really set off some of those budgets. I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, a couple $100,000 here and there, but I mean, that does make a difference. That comes, the smaller the county, the more that comes right out of your budget. So the interim conversations that we're going to have we're going to have to be targeted and real careful with how we have these conversations, because as I'm sure you guys are feeling, the pinch here with fuel prices and just inflation in general, the Democratic Party does not think they're going to do very well this fall. So since the Democrats are in the majority right now by a substantial number, any of these conversations that we have, especially with some of the more contested seats, may be frivolous, because we might have new legislators here as we come out of the November election. So there are some, I guess you could say, safer seats. But at the same time, those safer seats that are Republican held, take the 7th district as an example, generally, don't have a lot of leverage. And bills coming out of those areas, that's not the support you need. They're going to support us. So we'll have to have some of these conversations and hopefully prime the legislators that we think will still be around, and maybe some of the ones that we don't. And it might be worth having conversations even with some of the, potential, some of these people running for these seats. I don't know. That's a lot of the conversation inside WASAC right now. How do we as lobbyists and commissioners have conversations with what we're seeing are, the emerging majority in the Democratic Party right now, which tend to be more left-leaning and are a little bit more extreme than what we're used to seeing the traditional Democrat. And we are seeing, kind of the Democratic Party split a little bit, to what we would consider that traditional Democratic politician to more of a progressive liberal side. Long story short, they're not going away, either of them, and we need to figure out how to have those conversations. I know the last 2 years, it's been really difficult just with access to legislators, because we haven't been in person. We haven't been able to go sit in the galleries and stare at them when they're making their votes. It's amazing how much of a difference that really makes. If we are able to go back next year and be in person, it will certainly make this effort a lot easier, but we need to plan like we're not and figure out how to communicate with these people so that we can at least get our point across. So that's kind of where the conversation is headed in terms of WASAC and the other individual county lobbyists. I really am hopeful that we'll be able to come up with some sort of an approach, whether that's just the lobbyists making an effort, the lobbyists and the commissioners making more joint efforts to get involved with the state officials. But something has to change. Something has to get a little bit better in terms of communication and understanding of what we actually do down here. Because if it continues like it did this year, when the state had more money than they've ever had, and we're still on the extremely short end of the stick, it can't get better. So we have to figure out how to communicate that. With that, do you guys have any questions, comments? I won't say complaints, because I'm sure that there's a few. Observations, clarifications, anything like that?
Commissioner Sauter.
Yeah, Zach, Dave Sauter here. I think I share the frustration that I sense in your words, especially over the last couple of years, and how the workings of the legislature, where it's just so different than it has been. And I'm hopeful that if we can get back to actually sitting down and having conversations, and as you said, sitting in the gallery looking at them, where they know, they've kind of had a past the last couple of years to be able, and I think it has sort of emboldened some pretty extreme behavior on the part of legislators, because they've been in kind of a black box where they're really kind of cut off from only those voices of folks that agree with them. And so I'm hopeful next year, when folks can get back in there and it's a little more traditional, that it'll moderate a little bit. Because if it doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen to us, especially us rural counties on the east side, because nobody's listening to us.
Well, and I think, the other added layer here, we talk about frustration on our side, and whether it's commissioners or lobbyists, or, even the, guys that are seasoned lobbyists working for Boeing are having trouble getting access here. Another thing that's happened is a lot of the legislative aides have gotten tired of it, retired, left, just moved jobs. So we have a lot of brand new gatekeepers who don't understand how things work, and don't understand how campaign contributions work, and don't understand, that, yeah, you are the gatekeeper, but you got to let some of us through. You can't just keep saying, oh, sorry, my member's extremely busy, you can have a meeting with me. That's going to hurt them when they start asking for money. And obviously we don't give them any money, because number one, we can't, we don't have any to give them anyway. We're the ones with our hands out. But I know for a fact that Boeing, Amazon, eBay, name it, all the big companies, their campaign contributions have decreased significantly, probably by about 70 or 80%. And it's going to hit these legislators in the pocketbook, especially the Democratic legislators who have new LAs who don't understand that if you don't give me a meeting, why would I donate to your campaign? Because if I don't have access to you, what are we going to do? So they'll learn that. And this is going to be an educational experience, I think, this fall for everybody. Let's see how it goes. And I can tell you from the federal level, they're not doing their party any favors. How about that? Don't know if you've been watching the news or even put gas in your car lately, but that can't be a good sign for the Democratic Party as a whole.
Right. Now, this is Commissioner Christopher. I was at the start of this legislative session looking at the gun laws thinking there's no way in hell these are going to pass on an election year, on a year that they might lose office. But then I think, it's more like Commissioner Sauter said, if you had 2,000 people showing up at the Capitol complaining about them, they may not have done them. But now that they can sit in their private little office on Zoom and not have to deal with their constituents, it's a little easier to pass this year, which is probably why they passed before they open up. So no, that's all I got, is a little bit of event. Thank God the session is all but over almost, and they can't screw us for another year.
That's a bold statement. That's an extremely bold statement.
He's known
I'm known for bold
back.
statements.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It is Thursday, 5:00. They're supposed to be done. We'll see if they actually get it done. There's a lot of negotiations to happen. Early in the day, they'll probably bring up every bill they want to possibly consider. So when it comes to that 5:00 cutoff, they can just carry on, if they're not done by then, carry on as long as they need to, and cut the deals in the back room to get the thing done. But, what I'll do is I'll follow up with you guys here either probably next week to set up a follow-up conversation here so we can talk after the session is over, talk about what we maybe want to do for the interim, how we want to approach this. I'll probably put that out far enough that we can have some conversations with Wasack and the other individual county lobbyists to see if we can do kind of a group effort here. I can tell you right now, in those conversations, the King County lobbyists pretty much always disagree with what we're doing. They're very unhappy that the climate language was removed from a lot of these bills. They're very unhappy that the gun bills didn't go farther. it's really interesting in these, you know, the lobbyist only meetings to hear their stance on this stuff. They're just as far as they can go and as much as they can get on these things is the King County. And, you know, Pierce and Snohomish are not far behind, but they're not quite as, hey, let's go all the way as King is. So that's really where this stuff is coming from. It's coming directly from King County, and even the King County Council is testifying in favor of pretty much everything that we don't like.
Yeah.
So
People have lost the art of compromise and just shove it down your throat mentality.
well, when you have nearly a super majority, you don't have to compromise, you know. And I'm not, for the record, I'm not hoping for, you know, a Republican majority in the House and the Senate here this fall. I'm hoping for a split House and split Senate. Make them actually put some good legislation out.
Right.
You know, actually talk about it. I mean, that's when over the last probably 15 years I've been doing this, the best legislation has come out when at least one of the two houses is split right down the middle. That's when you see really, really good stuff. So
Thank you,
there
sir.
well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate the time. I'll be following up here probably next week, and we'll get the next one on the books and see what we can do over the interim.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
We have a few minutes. Would you guys like a little more legislative update?
Sure.
I sat in for Commissioner Sauter on the 4th Legislative Steering Committee. Their updates, House Bill 1333, the .09 funding extension died. Again. According to them, there wasn't enough transparency. They want a public facing website so the public can see how we are spending those dollars. They advised us to make sure we talk to senators this year so they understand the importance for next year. The 09 to extend it to use for housing obviously passed. That vote, King was a yes, Honeyford was a no, Mossberger was a yes, Corey was a no. So we can't even get along on our own party. GMA 1117 adding salmon recovery died. The comp plan switching to every 8 years instead of every 10 is passing. The one that I'm going to find interesting as we move forward is 1717, and that's tribal input in the comp plans are passing, which sounds like mediation for us. They will have $10 million in funds for comp plan grants. GMA counties up to 100,000 get 300,000. Non-GMAs like us up to 100,000 will get 150,000 grants. House Bill 1812, Governor's Bill streamlining the FSEC process, passed. Mossberger and Corey both voted yes. Honeyford and King both voted no. Green Energy Pilt died, obviously, in the Senate. Mossberger and Corey were both yeses. Not enough time in the short session to get a very detailed bill past the Senate. 1964, Representative Corey's Green Energy decommissioning plan died in the Senate, passed the House 87-10. Why I think that's important is I think it will go in future years. So as we start doing our future decommissioning plans, it will be my recommendation to model them after that bill that died so that we are at least close to whatever they come up with when they come up with. The battery stewardship bill died. 1845 Mossberger's body cam grant went absolutely nowhere in the House. So we'll be funding that next year, it looks like. Like he said, transportation bills passing. Pretty much not only will the state be keeping all the federal money, but they're looking to sweep the Public Works Trust Fund dollars, which he went over. Data center tax deferral, they're having executive session on the 9th. Reducing emissions from outdoor power equipment, again, executive session on the 9th. So those will probably fly through. For you, Dave, the next steering committee meeting, they're talking 2 weeks, which will be March 18th. Yesterday's WASAP virtual assembly, the bill that would allow us to ban fireworks up to 90 days died. So you still have to have a year to do that. Open Public Meetings Act allowing remote emergency meetings is passing or was passing as of yesterday. Police misconduct bill died. Odd year election, to abolish odd year elections, that died. Ranked choice voting died, but they're trying to bring it back next year. I don't understand some of their stuff. Prejudgment interest, luckily is stopped for now. That's probably the only one that went our way. Voting Rights Acts mostly died. What other ones? Oh, that looks to be the COVID funding is probably not going to die in June. We were supposed to be losing all our COVID grants in June. They're looked to be on that budget, so hopefully they're in that budget and we won't lose those. Landfill gas bill did end up passing. Doesn't affect us that terribly, but it could gain us some garbage. Transportation bill, micro trenching, broadband died. Zero emission power equipment still moving. That's what I have.
Great update. Thank you very much. Do you have any updates, Commissioner Sauter, from what you've seen?
Other than despair and lament.
I do think as part of when you do your legislative steering conference for next year's legislature, which I would love to do, but you're the guy, at least for now. I would like to make sure we have worked with our representatives to get them on board with the PILT, to get them on board with the decommissioning plan, to get them on board with all the things that are getting stuck in this county. So, had you brought everything? I just asked for one map.
I know, but I had them all stapled together as packets, so. You get a packet.
Good
I
morning.
only asked for one map.
If you don't want it.
No, it's fine.
Oh, all good.
It's the same packet they had last night.
Yes,
Thanks, sir. Well, my desk is now on since our meeting is now moving. I'm respecting my seatmates. Don't want to call it any more controversy
This week?
this week. Thank you, sir.
for the extra, I got some extra copies. People, but I'm not gonna.
We're a couple minutes ahead of schedule, but whenever you guys are ready, we're ready.
I am gonna need probably 10 minutes for back and forth and questions and whatnot after they're done, so. I know they only got a half an hour, but it may end up going 40 minutes.
I talked to Rob, his isn't super long, so we got all the time in the world. Did you go to the city council meeting?
Thanks.
It would have been
Till
more fun
10:30.
that way, but
What?
There was a good hour in the parking lot afterwards.
Okay.
Was already late enough.
Yeah, it was 9:15 by the time it ended, and then an hour in the parking lot.
I was ready to go home then.
You need a nap?
You can see the bags under my eyes.
Anytime, gentlemen.
All right, couple items on the consent agenda. First one is item number 4, and that's a final contract voucher and release of retainage for last year's striping contract. And I'll let Jeff get number 5, which is the Mountaindale maintenance.
Yes, it's the
Janitorial.
Mountaindale, and the way it's set up is we give all the options in case we lose a janitor or one gets COVID, or we're only gonna award the part that's our floor, 3rd floor, and those restrooms that are associated, because road pays for that. The rest, and we did an Annex 4, but if you look at the whole contract, it's for everything. It's a just in case scenario, in case I get somebody sick, somebody goes someplace else. I actually have a janitor I can bring in and I don't have to pull off our maintenance guys and have them do janitorial. So it's an emergency situation. So we only award that piece of it, but it is the ability to have the janitor clean this whole building if need be. Hopefully that won't come
So-
to fruition.
Yeah, and the typical monthly, like we talked, the typical
Yeah.
monthly is about 2,000 between what they do in Public Works and on the third floor and the cleaning at the shop out off Broadway. So that's what's typical,
Yes.
not the, I think it's 9,800.
90, yeah, that's not typical.
That's not,
That would be if something catastrophic happened. We lost a person or something like, or a couple people, then they would step in and do that service.
How do we, sorry to interrupt, but since you're on janitorial, it kind of comes up with a good question. Who's in charge of cleaning our windows around here, all 900 of the outside windows? We're gonna have to hire outside companies to do that now, or?
yeah, so we'll look at the people that came and cleaned, we're getting their names, and I guess there's about 2 or 3 others, and so we'll probably get bids so we can actually do that on a more regular basis. I don't know that we've ever cleaned the outsides at the courthouse for several years.
Since we
And then I
replaced
think it
them.
was just buildings and grounds with a pressure washer kind of thing and a squeegee.
Yeah,
So this is a different story, and I didn't even think of that expense until I started looking at the dirt buildup.
yeah, I think they were pretty quick and fairly economical from talking to the contractor. So, yeah, it's a 3-story squeegee. It's pretty amazing watching those guys.
Do we really have 900 windows, or are you being facetious?
They're very well could be. Windows in this building. It's a greenhouse. You could grow tomatoes in here and sell them.
Well, Victory Garden inside.
All right, and then item number 6 is our new striping contract for 2022, and that's again with Stripe Right. So they were the low bidder again this year. Let's see, construction, not really a lot going on with the other 2 that have wintered over. We're getting ready, remarking what we can on Canyon Road for signs and guideposts. And the guy started sweeping on Roosevelt Grade Road, so it won't be long, we'll be starting those up again as well. Courtney Road, though, we handed out a map, so we're, as part of this, the upper piece is a major reconstruct, and so on these, it's typically a lot safer just to close that segment, except for local traffic, so it's just not a through road. There'll be times when it'll be a longer delay even for the people that actually live there. There aren't many in that segment, but there are a few. And so the closure request will be, the official paperwork will come through next week. And the plan is to close it from April 4th to October 15th. So there's a possibility it might open sooner, but
We
that's.
don't tell people.
Yeah, if it happens, it's great. If not, it's October 15th. So
And it will be a
You're
hard
just
closure.
closing at the top of the hill there.
from the top down to, I think it's,
Yes.
down to where our big dirt job ends,
Okay.
Yeah,
which is where the pavement ends.
yeah, from both ends of the pavement.
Yeah.
How long do you expect the wait times to be?
There
Okay.
won't be wait times. We'll get people through that live in the area, but it will not be open to the public.
Right.
Because we'd have to man it with then. It also saves us,
Dollars.
yeah, a couple $100,000
Flagging crews.
flagging
Yeah.
you would have to have.
So you're not flagging then at all to get in there? It's just stop here and we'll let, and.
We'll
is it-
work with the people that live in the area, but other than that, they'll be told to go around. And we'll get the word out. That's why this map is, because these are the people that'll be impacted. What we do is we have an open house. And we'll get together with the group and then we'll explain the closure and that you just won't be able to go through there.
How many homeowners are there?
There's
Six?
3, I think, that live in the area. We will live within the closure and those we will work with.
Right.
But everybody else, there's more than that, but they just come up here. They're absentee owners. If
Okay.
they come up and they need to get in, we'll let them in. But as far as they're actually manning the closures because say, I don't know, say Lee wants to drive through and look at the job, we won't allow that. Because the contractor takes, it's a big liability for them.
And us.
and for us too. And we didn't bid the job that way. Just because it's pretty much impossible to keep the road open on some of those cuts.
No, you guys are moving way too much.
Yes.
Do we have, that's a very popular mountain biking. And I have concerns about, even if the road's closed, that, people like to just drive around barricades and.
They
So
do.
that the contractor's aware, I mean, that it may take some education. When you see the hordes there, especially on the weekends when they're not working, the road's supposed to be closed, I don't know what the solution is for people to respect those.
I think the
barricades.
easiest thing to do is talk to the Krebs and have them shut it down early. Because once that thing gets shut down, the paragliders, the mountain bikers, nobody's gonna allowed to go up there. They usually do it, first of June.
Say fire season, they're down. so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if we're having an issue, that might. be
We're gonna
the best.
work with the Forest Service also and let them know and get that posted on their website that will be closed this year. So that,
And I think.
Maybe I'm fretting over nothing.
no,
but
it's a good threat. It's a good
We
threat.
talked about that. I think, we'll post it and do what we can and then see what happens
Uh-huh.
and then go from there. Cause I think there will be people that.
We'll go
We'll
through.
go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
I mean,
think
when
so
I see
too.
people parking on the fog line on the state highway.
Yes.
Yeah. They wanna go there.
Yeah,
that they're where they should know better, and the only thing that finally got their attention was they came and towed all their vehicles off.
mm-hmm.
Then, what's a barricade on a road?
No,
Especially if I'll just go around it.
Yeah.
It don't be me, it's everybody else.
Yeah. And this, that we're heading into that busy time in the spring when it's
right.
one of the lower routes that opens up where there's not snow. And that's where they wanna go. So, yeah, it'll be an issue.
Mhm.
I think most of the locals understand.
Well, I'm not worried about the
they're-
locals.
It's.
No, it's the people coming in from Portland
I
and
mean,
nearby
I've
areas.
lived in a project before, and where I was right in the project, and that was before I was a commissioner, and it was fine, where we just worked with the contractor, and if we needed to, that's how it was. The road was closed for 4 or 5 months, but for us locally, we could go through and we just worked with them, and they, sometimes we had to wait because there was there was a bunch of equipment, and then they would get someone to drive us through. It was, to hand us off, get us through so we didn't get run over by, especially that was Broke Brothers,
See,
which
that-
I wasn't sure there's,
That sounds like a mile
Hey,
case.
Just so
We-
you know, it's muted.
so there you go.
We had it for 2 years where we couldn't turn right. We had to turn left to go the long way around.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, construction is construction.
Yeah.
This is chump
This-
change compared to that.
Okay, so that'll come to you next week.
Yes.
Design side, we're moving forward on the Klickitat path. That's much closer. We actually got a permit from WashDOT, and I think Parks hasn't totally bought off yet, but we're closer with them. So I don't see too many hindrances to us being able to construct this summer.
I do, going back to Courtney, there's a couple spots where people park now that always have parked there, paragliders that walk up there and everything. Are you guys gonna ensure that there's still enough off-road parking so that it doesn't impact the neighbor's house right there?
Yeah, we've worked with Parks to maintain the
Right.
locations they had asked us to make sure there's parking that's available before and after. There are some areas where we've actually widened the shoulder to,
Mhm.
that's for multiple uses.
Got it.
So,
Yeah, widen the shoulder.
yeah,
Good.
I just wanted to make sure there's gonna be enough that they can park there and go jump off their hill. Otherwise, I'm gonna be hearing about it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Parking lots are still on track for the building. I don't know if we want to save the discussion.
Yeah, we'll do that last.
Okay. Let's see. Maintenance, it's sweeping sand off the roads, cleaning ditches on Lytle grade, and grading. That's the east side, Goldendale East. And then on the west side, we're sweeping and removing roadside brush and grading. So kind of those in-between items that need to be done anyway on an annual basis. On the building, so good news on the big hole or the big dig. We got a no further action from DOE. Somebody finally made a decision after we retested our well and sent those, the results of that into DOE. They finally told us that we're done. We can fill a hole and there'll be nothing further. Kind of like we finally got on the mill site. So, but the mill site took us a lot longer.
Yes.
So this is actually pretty nice.
I love the phrase, we will de-water the hole,
Yeah.
de-water.
So, yeah, so we have to haul off the water. So that was, there's no contaminants in it and we can haul that off.
That is great.
Yeah. So moving ahead. So the plan is to de-water it the 17th and 18th, and then we'll start filling it back in on the 21st. And that'll allow the contractor to come back in and finish the rest of their work. They'll put the rest of the crushed rock in and then be able to pave it, do their concrete, finish the sidewalks and all those kinds of things.
Are you at all worried that the hole might fill back in between the 17th and 18th and the 21st?
Oh, not.
It might get a little, we anticipate that, but the idea is if we need that time for it to dry out around the area, because when you start dewatering, you're still, inevitably, you're gonna get leakage.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's gonna, everything is gonna get saturated. So that way, when we come back Monday, it's had that whole time to dry. And if we have to pump some out, which we anticipate, we'll have to pump out, maybe a couple hundred gallons. And then at least it'll be contained down in the hole, so where nothing will dry.
Yeah, there'll still be water in the hole. The plan is we
Yes.
won't pump all of it out, but we
No.
have big rocks, so the rock, there'll be voids in there that the water can displace itself in. And then once we get past that, then we'll put some fabric down and then we'll put smaller rock and work our way up. So,
We'll have a little French drain on the bottom.
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
How,
Yeah.
according to our other well, right next to it, how far down is the water table right there? I mean, are we right at the water table?
That I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't
I'd
know
have to
what
look
that
at the
is.
results.
We don't
I
want to know.
I was gonna say, you might wanna ask Whitney to go over there and measure the depth, because it might not de-water right now if we're in this wet season. It might just come right back up.
It could, yeah. We'll check it out.
Big enough rocks, it's fine.
We'll take a look at
Bigger
it.
French drain.
The fabric's amazing stuff.
It is,
You
and
can build
bridges,
over a swamp.
yep.
Yeah.
Put a full layer in it.
You look at it and go, really? Yep.
Now that we've moved juvenile out of Annex 3, the plan is that building will come down. So after our crews finish filling up the hole over here, they'll move over to Annex 3 on the 28th, the week of the 28th, and demo Annex 3. So that's our
Just
plan.
for clarity, we have tested, or we know as far as asbestos in Annex 3 we've abated, or
There
We
it is.
tested all the buildings and there's none in Annex 3. We do have asbestos in Annex 1
right?
that we're in the process of getting permits, and we'll abate that prior to demo.
Which is some tile in Annex 1. And the
Floor
bathrooms,
tiles.
that floor tile
Right.
stuff.
What is the time frame on Annex 5 for him to pull that out?
So they have to be out by mid-April. So this may help them. I think they're originally planning on pulling it out to the south.
Oh, really?
That's how it went in there, but this will give them another option. I think they
Yeah.
originally wanted to pull it out that way, and we're like, well, we're not sure we're gonna have the building out, so this may help them.
Mm-hmm. Straight way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, so the contractor's been busy in the evenings, working on punch list items and repairing things. So the flooring contractor comes back this week. They worked on the blinds last night. They didn't finish, but they're farther along. I haven't talked to the contractor yet today, but we were kind of eyeballing at what they were doing last night and then this morning to see how far they got done, so.
Are
they're
these
not-
all electric in here? No, they're not.
These are not,
I was gonna say, I see the
these will
strings the
be,
minute
yeah,
I
the
said that.
outside.
Yeah.
Let's see. Still working on the HVAC. They're pulling some more cables for the boilers. So we still have the issue with the core of the building heating up. And if it gets too cold, the chiller won't come on, which we don't want to have happen anyway in the winter time. And then the cold air intakes, the fresh air intakes, they have a set temperature too. So when it gets really, really cold, we can have heat, but we don't get a lot else for coolant, so that they'll only suck in so much outside air, which can make the core of the building get warmer, as people that are in the middle of the building have noticed. I know HR gets really hot occasionally, or has.
I'm probably the only person that's appreciated my window so far, so.
Yeah, and you can pop the window open.
And I'm
get
tall
some-
enough to reach it, so.
Yeah. So they're working on that as well. They still have more painting to do. In the HR weed area, they came in and put the drop ceilings. Last night, they'll reconnect the HVAC into that new office that was created. And we're getting pretty close to completing that. So the doors, I think, are probably the biggest issue these days, so. Parking expansion, we met with the city last night and they actually put the vacation of Grant between Court and Allen on the agenda as a hearing item for April 4th. And we have our open house today. So what I was thinking was we have cake and refreshments, cookies, coffee, that kind of stuff. And so thought maybe we'd open up the room, the glass downstairs, and then set up the cake in a place to, if we want to have more of a formal dedication of the building, and the plaque, all those things kind of right below us, and then just have it all open and kind of informal, but there'll be that formal piece as well. So if that sounds good, that's what we'll do.
Are you bringing the port to break over the building?
Yeah, no, I figured you were cutting the cake with a golden shovel.
You remembered your shovel, didn't you?
Yeah, I got it.
There was a request for pie. We had to tell them no.
All right, radio project?
Radio project, let's see, the Conservation District signed the agreement, so that'll come before you guys next week. We're trying to hammer out the final stuff. We're actually making a site visit on the 16th with PUD. And so we can put our temporary power in, and that way we get one of the transformers. And then they'll set a transformer. And the design is pretty much done. We just, there's a couple decisions that need to be made. And other than that, we have to get the geotech up there still. But after next week, we should have a lot of it hammered out. And the construction part of that. Well, it's still planning on starting in May. To actually build the road in, and then the building will start construction in probably June.
Okay, Bingen Underpass. So is another delay. So they lost their lead designer, and they're backfilling it with a new person. After submitting their plans for the shoe fly, the railroad said that they would like to have the shoe fly location, which is moving the tracks basically to the north, that they would like that as their permanent location. So now that means that there's maybe some vertical clearances that don't work And so they're gonna have to go back through and redesign. So during construction, it'd be fine to have less clearance under the bridge, but not permanently. So now it's, does a roundabout fit within the right of way? Cause it'll push that whole vertical grade to get back up to 14 north. Unfortunately. So this has always been the issue though, getting things fixed with the railroad, but we have not thought that was the issue for the last 10 years. So now we're stuck with changes that really should have been ironed out in the beginning. And now that will probably delay construction again. So just giving you the update.
If I may, Mr.
You may.
Chairman, do you get a sense from the railroad? Well, I mean, I'm asking you to speculate, or I'm speculating that
Yeah.
why do they want to realign the track? Or is this just a way of delaying, or, that they don't really want to, they've never wanted to do any of this
Right.
as far as both the railroad and WashDOT, and how convenient that now 10 years in, seems like, maybe it's not that long into the project, this is, it's not a fatal flaw, but it could be significant where they've already acquired right of way, they've torn buildings down with the design as far as they bought people's houses out. And then if you move the track over, none of that may even work now. And it's almost like you have to go back to the beginning. And so you could end up with, well, you can't do it. And, oh well, I guess now we own a whole city block in Bingen that has no houses on it for a roundabout that we don't need anymore. So I'm
Yeah.
just very suspicious that this is, there's like, everybody's looking for a way to not do this. This seems like a really good way to throw up another roadblock that, it's. So how soon, as far as you said, there's a new project manager, I mean, is he an actual project manager, or is he I'm just running the clock out until there's no money left, and the budget now, the inflation has now gotten to the point where, we can't do any of it because it's, we're working with, $2002, it seems like, almost, but, so that's more of a vent than, I'm just curious if you work with the RTC a lot. I mean, I don't, as far as what your take is on this project.
I've talked to the people from the railroad kind of informally. Well, we've gone out there at meetings and I'm like, just chat with the people, the guys that are out there, and they're like, what's the holdup? And they're like, the sense I get from talking with them is they don't like being told what to do with their right of way and how to do it. And they'd rather be approached that if they ask us, then, but they're being told that this is what the solution is, instead of a collaboration where the railroad actually says, we think it should be like this, within our right of way. And you always had to have a shoe fly, right, from the very beginning to make this work. And whether that's a permanent one or a temporary one, that's, I don't know why the railroad wants it now to be permanent, but I don't think, and even from talking with WashDOT, it was always an easy thing. We're just gonna, blow right through this and knock this out. And I think there's more, it's the railroad's right of way, and you have to work with them to come up with a solution. And I'm not sure that really occurred at first. That's the sense I get from talking with both parties.
Don't they do this all the time now?
That's what they said, yes.
Doesn't appear to be.
Yeah. I know my experience working with the railroad is it's their right of way. They're gonna
Yes.
tell you what you're gonna do in their right of way.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that. If you do that, you move forward as quickly as you can with the railroad.
Yes,
But it still takes a while, but not this long.
no, you're right.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's sort of frustrating. It's been really frustrating for me watching this, and nobody really wants to listen.
Well,
So before we do the parking lot, I put together an example, so
Example.
of Garrison Road, since it's on our radar. We just got through with that last week. So we talked about, what are some solutions for these main routes? There are routes that are more significant and have more traffic and conflicts potentially with cars and cows, like Simcoe Mountain Road or Centerville Highway, those
Mhm.
kinds of roads. So the idea is that we come up with a flip sign, because it's hard for the range deputy, they only have so many signs, and people are moving cows at similar times during the spring and the fall. So these are signs that would be out there on some of those routes where we have issues, where the people driving cattle can go up and flip the signs, and then when they're done, they get flipped back up, just like our overweight,
road
when we have our
restrictions,
freeze thaw,
Right.
those signs are flip signs. And these would be available for that. So in this
And
case,
this-
it'd be, to cover Garrison Road, it'd be 3 signs. Simcoe Mountain, you're gonna have a lot more intersecting roads. So there'd be more signs on that route to get
But
cows.
your thought is this is a test run to see if it works before we move up to those other roads?
Yeah, I think, I
Well,
don't
not
think I'd do it on
Garrison.
Garrison. I think I would, do it, I mean, Simcoe Mountain is a big one. I think we'd have to talk to the ranchers. I don't know. My sense is that road gets used a lot, maybe Olson Road, and then.
Centerville Highway.
Yeah, Centerville Highway, and I know I've come up on them over a grade, and there's cows,
Yeah.
so it's.
Say
it's,
Horseshoe Bend Road as it goes out too, cause yeah, you're right at the top and
Yeah.
they don't send a rider up to check it out. So if you're lucky as you're going through the whoops there,
Right,
you see them coming down 1, 3 or 4 ahead, but
yeah,
and
not
then you
always.
stop up here to make sure everybody else stops behind you, cause
Yeah.
it's pretty sketchy.
Yeah, so I think, if we tried something like this, we'd pick a road that has more conflicts with cows and vehicles than Garrison, but this is just an example.
Have you checked with the local Cattlemen's Association to see if they would be interested in partnering and bringing some funds to the table?
Not yet. We wanted to talk to you guys, just that this is a potential solution,
Right.
and then that would be what we would do.
so since it's orange, it's yield.
What's
right?
that?
Because it's orange, it's just, it's a yield per sign
It's
pretty
a
much.
warning. sign.
Warning,
A
it's a
warning
warning,
sign.
yeah.
Yes.
And an advice, please drive 35.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's not, you don't have to, but it's,
Leave it up all the time. You never know when there's gonna be a cow on. I mean, it's not just for the cattle drive. I mean, sometimes the cows come home.
Yeah, but if you leave it up all the time, people will
Yeah,
start ignoring it.
yeah, that's the
A lot of
problem
this is
with,
about liability though.
that's a problem with like our schools, another area, school crossings or zones, if you don't, like we have the flashing beacons, because it used to be without those, it was when children are present, well, are they here? I see a kid over there, does that count? So it's to have the sign have meaning and impact, we don't really want it open
All
when
the time.
there's
Right.
not cows being driven. So that's what this is for, is the driving, so. But it's an example. If you want us to move forward or pursue it any further, we can.
But we already have some, right?
The range deputies, or deputy has
Yeah.
some of these signs, yeah. They're
He
similar to
just
this.
puts them out.
Yeah,
I
they're on
mean-
stands.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is you just have it somewhere where, and when they know they're gonna be driving cattle, they can come and grab it. If the range deputy's otherwise occupied and they're, out at the fairgrounds and they can grab it themselves and put them up, I mean, they care about the liability just as much as we do,
Yeah,
so. It's just an option. What do you guys think? Should we try them somewhere?
I'm fine with exploring the option. But again, the funding source is what's gonna stick me. So I like the idea, but I don't like the idea of the guy who lives on Old Mountain Road having to pay for it. You get my gist. I'm a self-funding kind of a person. So as these is your baby, you should be funding them.
Sure. I mean, we can explore how we, a way to
Yeah.
pay for this, is it, by request, like some of the other things we have, and that the people
Request
that
or
use
pay.
it pay for it. Or lots of different options that we can go back and
Like I said,
think
that's
about.
kind of approach them, see where they're at, see what they
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
willing to work with them, but I don't want to fund it.
I
At
Okay.
still
least full fund.
think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, I like the idea that they're not up all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a new sign, people will go, "Oh, what's that?" as they're driving down the road, so.
Right.
Commissioner Sauter.
Yeah, I'm supportive of trying it out. I'm fine with exploring other funding things, but in the end, the road is a system and we all pay. If I live on a straight road that has no curb signs, why am I paying for all those curb signs on Old Mountain Road or Horseshoe Bend? So I mean, it's all a system. I mean, this is specific to kind of an industry, so I kind of see that. So I'm open to it, but I don't think everything is fee for service. I think that's what we pay taxes for. So, yeah, I'm open to
Okay.
whatever you come back with.
Okay. We'll pursue
Oh,
it a little
yeah.
further. All right. That's the end of our list unless you have
Yes,
something.
no, almost.
You done ready for me?
I think so.
Okay. I just have a punch list, you might say, of my own stuff that I'm curious. We'll do Grant Street parking at the end. One thing that's been brought up to me on numerous occasions, which I meant to look today. I know where it is on the second floor and the third floor, the little direction map that says, hey, go here to HR and whatever. On the first floor, is it in the same location down there around the corner, right on the inside of the hallway?
No, you can see it from the, it's up against the
It's up
entrance
against
into
the
the
wall there,
elevator.
okay.
And
Because there's been public walking around the building looking for this, that, or the other. And it's usually right now tends to be the auditor's office to pay their, car tags,
Oh,
or the treasurer to pay their taxes. And they're literally on the second floor asking where they should go because I'm thinking they didn't see the map or something. So I was bringing that up. I don't know if the board is interested, but it would be my encouragement to change the electrical vehicle signs to 30-minute parking signs. Question about the mailbox parking. I got a complaint that we have county employees parking on that east side of the building over there. One of those is the blue mailbox, but the city has white paint line out there in the road that literally pretty much says don't park here. But they're parking there anyway, but it's old paint line. That's a city issue, am I correct?
so we'll go back because we should have marked those parallel parking lines there. And I'll talk to the city about hatching that out when the
Because
weather's
it's like there's a
better.
block there of white paint, but it's really old.
Yeah.
So
you
maybe
can't-
that's it. It needs to be,
Yeah, it needs to
because
be.
it was actually the fire department that was complaining to me about that one because they couldn't get to the mailbox.
Yeah, that one and then ours by our entrance for the courthouse, where the parallel parking is there. We'll mark that out. We will, because we're not done.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of our project. And then I noticed people are parking on the north side of the road. And so we're gonna put up a couple signs because they're not supposed to park there anymore.
Oh, yep.
They're parallel parking up against that curb, and that narrows the road for the fire department as well.
Just wanted to give you a reminder about picnic tables as it gets nice. Dispatch sound panels. I believe that this board agreed that we were going to be doing those sound panels this year. I did just get off the phone earlier with Mr. King, who said that he has fund balance. Because he got an additional, I don't know, $150,000 grant, so we won't be using some of his REIT, so he has excess fund balance. For clarification of me, which I thought we already approved that, but I may or may not be wrong. I'm looking for direction for Public Works on whether we are or are not, as a board, doing those sand panels this year.
How do you recall it?
That was taken out of the budget. As far as during the budget process, it was pushed to the following year.
Right.
We had conversations about, is that really a smart idea? And could we find,
Funding.
once the numbers settled out, because it's about, I want to say it's like 30 or 40,000.
30, 40.
25 or
yeah.
30, yeah.
That in the interests of,
Safer.
I guess, crew morale as well, that would be money well spent that I think we should find somewhere. But I think as it exists right now, it is not in the plan. It's for 2023,
Yes.
not 2022. So it would take an amendment, which we could do if we're, and
Well,
I would be
that's-
supportive of that as far
And
as.
that's why I was bringing up I know it's not in the non-capital budget for them, but if he's bringing his own fund balance to the table, however. you
His
guys-
fund balance is our fund
Well, I'm
balance.
fully
Just
aware of that.
remember. Just so everybody listening out there, none of the money is actually yours. It's actually not ours either, but.
So I guess I would say I'm looking for a firm, yes, we're moving forward, or a firm, no, we're not moving forward until next year.
It's okay, Jed. It's okay.
And my answer would be to advise them to move forward this year.
I'd like a little bit more information about where that fund balance came from and what that is. And then we can move that money if he under budgeted from last year and has leftover funds. And that's what he wants to use them on, then I'm fine with it, but
Okay.
a little
So
bit more information would be good.
That's what he told me. So essentially these were budgeted funds that he was supposed to have to use, but he ended up getting a $150,000 grant that he wasn't aware of. So these will be left over at the end of the year. But that's fine with me if we want to throw him on the agenda. He couldn't be here today because he had another grant that he was on at 10 o'clock today. So if we can throw him on, hopefully for something for next week to give board update, then we can move forward with that. Thank you, gentlemen. Wanted to remind you to push to finish reconciling Dallasport wastewater so that we can get it moving along, which brings up another question I had of fund balance. Dallasport wastewater treatment facility, according to my little graph, has started with below 8 million in fund balance, and now it's up at, I don't know, close to 11 million in fund balance. If we dispose this facility and transfer it off to who or whoever, does that fund balance go with them? Is that part of the project? Or does that fund balance come back to us?
No, and I would have to see what you're looking at, but I am unaware that there certainly is not $11 million in fund. There may be some cash flow.
But not, I think I sent you some. Did you get a
Right,
chance?
I did.
That comes from the PUD.
Right.
And that was reconciling what they have in budget. And then, we have some, but you guys know what we have. I mean, it's your money. So it's not, I don't know what off the top of my head what we have, but it's not that much.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we were asking for additional funding for capital.
Right, exactly.
So
Yeah, but
think
that
there's-
definitely, as far as to the, whatever the number is, would stay with us. I would anticipate, or that's what I would support, but
You're
there's,
just thinking that fund balance that's in our,
yeah, I think this is,
that was given us during the budget process last year.
Huh.
And we can
By
have
us,
finance, I can have her relook at those.
yeah,
numbers.
as far as what this is.
That's a copy of Glenn's old fund book.
So I don't know if this is the sort of accumulated,
Value.
depreciated,
Right.
where it's the value of the project.
It's not real money.
It's not real money. It's not cash. So I don't know what this is, but yeah, to my knowledge, the only cash balance that's on that is just for, actually, there is some, but nothing like that, to the point where even the capital projects that were suggested, there's not enough cash in the fund to even pay for that,
Okay.
that it would take additional, that's one of the things that we're
What are the arguments?
we're having a
Yeah,
discussion with the PUD about
I'm sure.
Yes.
right now.
That's why I want to make sure.
Yes, I got that. So, yeah. I wish there was 11 million.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm looking at this going, wait a minute, what?
Never mind, let's keep it.
Yeah.
It generated $11 million revenue. Wow.
Funny math looks different on paper when you put a graph next to
Yeah.
it.
That might be-
Yeah.
Last is, let's for you anyway, is Grant Street. If you look at page 2 of your map. So this is the Grant Street vacation down here behind the courthouse. And at the bottom of it, it's going to be closed off is the way it is now on the south side of the jail. And you have this straight pull-in parking, which I absolutely hate. As being a guy that drives a dually truck, like half the population of this side of the county. I'm having some heartburn with this. Now, we did propose this to city council for the vacation, and this was the plan. One councilman abstained because they work for the county. One was a no on even having the public hearing. The rest voted yes to the public hearing, but there's concerns there. And the more I look at this, the more I don't sleep great on it either. So I guess my question is, hard to say, gentlemen, but looking at this right now, I'm not on board with it.
What,
and
how,
that-
what's the reason?
I don't like the non-through traffic and I don't like non-directional parking.
The non-through traffic it's just safer not to have through traffic in a parking lot with pedestrians. And that's really the primary reason. If it remains a through street, then there's really no reason for a vacation either.
Right.
The way
Why
I'm
did we
looking
s-
at it, it doesn't look wide enough though in between to make it a through street, because you've got the way the parking's sitting.
Why did we
Would
switch
narrow it up,
from,
Yeah,
It's gonna narrow it up.
yeah, so we tried to maximize the number of parking spaces in
right,
here.
and that's why you took out the diagonal parking and put in the straight ahead parking.
No, because you can load from either direction of travel. I can come in either way and pull into a spot. It doesn't matter. Whereas with angle parking, you only can load from one direction.
I get what you're saying, because that's how I get to where I always park, is I come down the road and through.
And there was,
But it
there
is
was
gonna be one
concerns
way
addressed-
going that other way.
There was concern addressed from the church that's on the south side would be below the courthouse down here. That they use that parking on Sundays and, now people have to drive around the block to use the parking. I'm not too necessarily worried about people driving through the block and not being able to get through there. I can't wrap my head around this. To like the idea.
Could, and I don't know the rules, but could you make that a one-way going through there? And then it doesn't need to be, and then it doesn't need to be as wide?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess I'm saying anything's possible, but if I'm going back with Gordy on the 4th of next month when they have their hearing. if you want somebody to testify in favor of this, it won't be me. Because I don't believe this is in the best interest. I don't believe this is in the best interest of the people that live outside this building. I don't believe closing the street and or the straight-in parking. So I just can't get on it.
Commissioner Sauter, please.
What I'm troubled by is that we keep coming back to, we have engineers, we have experts that we rely on to make, to bring us stuff. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not, so I guess I'm trying to stick up for the experts in that I don't really care one way or the other, except that I'm assuming from the interactions I've had with you folks and other professionals over my career, even before I was a county commissioner, is that generally there's a pretty good reason why, there's thought given to how things get designed. That I, as a layperson, when I come up, it'd be nice to have everybody that you can park a hay trailer in every spot in the county. That would be nice, but sometimes that's not practical. That we're trading off things that we need a certain amount of parking spaces and maybe we don't. So I'm assuming, as far as your, we came up with the design was to, close Grant Street. Otherwise we don't need a vacation because it's just still a public street and people can go through. I'm assuming we could, abandon that plan if we want to and leave it, but then the only way we'd have to redesign the parking lots, which I'm assuming is gonna result in less parking spaces. It would appear to me that would be the down. And that's something we can have a discussion about, but that we understand when do we pull the trigger on things and not keep redesigning things.
Well, I would add, if I may, sir, interrupt.
Sure.
That all of these plans were set by the previous board.
It doesn't have anything to do with the previous board. It has to do with, do we rely on engineer? It's like, I'm not in here saying, well, why is that beam that size? It's like, because we had a structural engineer and I could say, wow, that seems awfully big in my experience. And why did we waste this money on this giant beam out there that's holding it? Because the structural engineer stamped the plans and that's what they came up with. And that's what I'm paying for. Same with this. Traffic engineers came up with this design. And I'm not saying it's the only design. It's not. It's everybody has a different opinion. But I am not a traffic engineer. And I'm going to respect and I'm going to listen to what the experts have to say. As I said, I don't have a dog in this fight one way or the other. I don't care, but I am going to stick up for the professionals and I'm going to listen to them. And it has nothing to do with politics and a previous board made. Because guess what? The previous board listened to the engineers. And I would assume the current board is going to listen to the professionals as well. And, ultimately we can say, no, we don't like it, do something else.
So what is our backup plan in case the city council chooses to not vacate the street? Because we don't have control over that.
No, then we would redesign to maximize the number of spaces that we could in the property that we own.
So that would be my question is if they choose to not vacate the street, is there a potential for negotiation to make it a one-way street, narrow that down so we can still get more the parking spots that we need?
Sure, they worked with us during construction. We did have it one way. So that is a possibility if they don't, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Commissioner Christopher, floor is yours.
So my point about the previous board is I believe that the traffic engineers listened to guidance from the board to see how they want to proceed. I'm sure there is more than one avenue or one approach or one build plan for this parking lot based on the direction that the legislative body wants to go. That was my point. So they were probably following the direction that the legislative body wanted to go, or maybe the legislative body didn't have an opinion and they just came up with it. But there's got to be more than one way to skin a cat. I'm telling you, I don't like this way we're skinning the cat. I don't like a lot of the ways that this whole thing has gone down, but I've respected the system and have not, I guess I'd say, thrown a stick of dynamite in it. I went along to get along. On this one, I'm having heartburn. It's a parking lot. It's not a building. It's a small heartburn compared to the other heartburns I could have had. I'm asking if there was another way. And in order for me to support it, it's got to have another way.
Is that alley currently there? And does that go in? The alley, I
Yeah.
never noticed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not on the platted portion of the Goldendale plat, but they would have
Use.
prescriptive rights just based on use.
On use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we put it in there because we want to maintain that access.
I'm essentially not willing to burn political capital for something I don't want. So you can continue it the way it is, and that's fine, and take your chances, or we look at other avenues.
I understand where you're coming from for it's a parking lot and you care about safety. And that is a lot of parking spots and a lot of people going back and forth, and I do understand. And so long as they're willing to grant the city, because the city set how many parking spots we're supposed to have, and that's what we're supposed to do. I would assume any changes we make are gonna result in fewer parking spots. I've had a few conversations with the downtown business owners, and, they're crying about not enough parking spots in Goldendale. But so I understand, and this is the plan, and this is what's been designed, how much money went into designing this and getting everything set. If the city chooses no vacation for any reason, then we redesign. But the direction that was set by the previous board and the direction that you guys have been given and the traffic engineers, I'm fine. If they change their mind, if the city says no, then the city the city is saying, well, we don't care about that many parking spots, we care about something more, which is on them, not on us.
Right.
But we have to meet our requirements.
You're 79 parking spots over your requirements, so.
And with regards to you going to the meeting and saying your piece, you are your own commissioner and you are always free to say your own piece.
Good enough.
All right. You got something else?
No, not for Public Works, but for us. One of these was brought up when we did the chat feature. The other one is a potential issue later with the pool board. I think it would be in the best interest of this board to not make decisions today. On
Thank you, gentlemen.
presentations, thanks guys, on presentations made today. Not make decisions this week, on presentations made this week. Tell everybody, we'll think about it, we'll give you an answer next week. That way we give staff time enough time to come back to us and give an opinion, or legal counsel enough time to give an opinion before we step in something. So that's just kind of where I'll be coming from going forward.
So what you're saying is you've learned from the chat feature?
Hopefully,
Me too. That was a good lesson to learn.
I think so.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Chair, we want to be good team players, so we're more than happy to come back next month.
I got everybody hot and bothered before you got up here.
Just kidding. So Jeff's going to be the leadoff hitter, and Jen's warming up in case he's batting cleanup. So, in IT, we wanted to.
Improve your batting.
Yeah. So we want to start off with good news. We think it's good news, is, IT has the Solar Wind Service Desk software that they use for their service desk portal. And Jen may talk more about it later, but she's using it for fiscal supplemental forms and processes. HR is working on adding the onboarding forms and processes to that portal. And we found out, or Jeff told me recently, that Buildings and Grounds is going to move their work order system, or use that for their work order system as opposed to upgrading or purchasing the one they have. And so it's more departments are starting to use this software. And I think that's important for a number of reasons. One, we talk a lot about knowledge management, cross-training, trying to get things out of people's spreadsheets and putting them in a centralized location. And that is now happening because we can put processes, document processes and forms on this software. So it's not on somebody's desk, but it's centralized and available to everybody. So we're pretty pleased that departments are starting to use that software. And I think there's multiple benefits for them to do that. You want to add anything?
No, you pretty much covered it. I mean, the software can be used to standardize processes, which is pretty useful, especially for interdepartmental processes.
So we wanted to give you an update. I think Courtney's on the phone. We just told her we were going to give you an update. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please remind, there was some issue with Solar Winds that's in my memory, that there was some negative.
Different product, but we do have that product as well, but we were not a part of the breach from SolarWinds.
I think a county, their system went down because they were able to get through, somebody was able to get through solar.
It was a big breach, but yes, didn't affect us. Yeah.
So we wanted to give you an update on document imaging, and we've had some discussions about adult probation and juvenile, I think mostly needing software with the retirement of the previous director, and had a legacy system that he had created, and we talked about using on base. So Jeff has been working with Courtney and on base, and wanted to give you an update of kind of what that's looking like, or at least initial discussions are.
Yeah, so our initial kind of step into on-base would be adult and juvenile probation. The upfront cost would be a little high, but it would be kind of a lead-in to a county-wide document management system. And we would be using Nardos's, our new on-base system administrator, to help with the project. The initial cost quote from on-base or ImageSoft, our on-base provider, was $125,000. But we believe we could build on that, and there are ways to reduce it as well.
I think Nardos thought if she did the work, we could potentially cut that in half, still be significant licensing issues with that software.
And we're also, I have a meeting this week with Public Works to discuss maybe a future rollout to them as well, that could span multiple departments, Public Works, building and planning, to digitize their documents and get them into on-base as well.
So one thing we're trying to avoid is in 2 years, hopefully, the state's going to provide adult and juvenile with software at no cost, standardize it around the state. So we want to make sure that any investment, should we go that way, wouldn't be lost in 2 years. So whatever department we would start with initially would have a higher cost, and then the more departments we add to it, the cost would be lower. Now, whether it would be 120,000 is, we don't know, but that's the initial.
So the initial departments that I've discussed it with was adult probation and juvenile, but in the first leg, I was hoping to get also Superior Court and East and West District. I've had some communication with Superior Court, but not as much as I have with the probation departments. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
So still exploring, still looking into it, still looking at options. Before we had serious discussions with you about whether we move forward or not, and talking to the judges and other departments to see where it might go. So it's not inexpensive to go this route by any means.
Don't we currently have some on base that we use throughout the county?
The clerks have on base, yes.
So why would the first one be more expensive than we build upon it? We already have it. Wouldn't it be less expensive as we're building off the clerks?
It's just different types of licensing and workflow. The clerks use it mostly just for document management. Adult and juvenile probation would be using it for document management and case management. So it wouldn't just be documents that they have in it, and that requires different licensing.
Jeff and I were talking before the meeting. He thought just the licenses alone to add these departments could be 50 to 60,000. I mean, we don't have a quote from them yet, but
For how many employees? That seems. Commissioner Christopher, you may.
I could be brain dead, but don't answer that, dude. I could swear when the clerk was giving her, I want this on base, she told us that there was already 22 licenses or something in the county, and probation already had this. They just probably weren't using it.
go ahead.
There are different types of licenses. So they have view-only licenses, which probably would be used to some extent, but the other modules that would be required to build, at least the demo that we were provided, would require additional licenses. But I don't know if what Nardos would build, if we went that way, exactly what that would take.
So none of this is set in stone. We're still looking
Exploring.
into and exploring it. Obviously,
Right.
we realized 125,000 is probably a no-go, but we need to gather as much information as possible and get information for the questions that you pose. And
To me, it's scary because I honestly think this is something that needs to be in every department and it needs to be countywide. It's just your number just scared the bejesus out of me.
Why do you think he started high that way? So when he cuts it in half, it sounds a little better.
that's a good idea.
It's always going to be 65%.
Yeah. No. Hopefully it's not 100.
Led with that, it'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, no. It's like, oh, it's 125, but we got it in half. We got it in half, so.
To say 60 sounds like a great number now.
Yeah,
If we
yeah,
had with
yeah.
that, it'd been, whoa.
Like a Nordstrom sale. Buy two, save money. So, okay, well, we're still looking into it, obviously. We're just kind of keeping you updated that Jeff is, talking to Nardos and talking to the departments. And I mean, we have to do something. We don't know what that something is yet. So the next two issues are potential supplemental issues. One we know pretty sure, one we're still working on. So as you recall last year, in the second supplemental, we had funds in there to move to the new trunk lines, eliminate the long distance calling, save about 60 grand. When the second one got kicked to the third one, when that got approved, because remember we did, the third one was the second and the third supplemental together for some of the items. The vendor didn't have enough time to get it done. It's just now been implemented this last couple of weeks, correct?
Yeah.
So the money that was in the supplemental at the end of the year to cover implementation is back into the general fund. So we've incurred $13,000 to $15,000 in implementation cost that the funds were available last year. Now we know that because we didn't have people not budget for the long distance and the phone lines, that money is still spread through all the funds. So we know there's savings in there. We'd like to work with Jen to see if we can identify 13 to 15,000 with whatever the final number is, and pull that out of some of those, the general fund or other funds or departments, and to cover this implementation cost. So the money's in there, it's just spread out over all the different budgets, and either we could pull it now, or it'll roll. If they don't spend it, it'll roll to back to the ending fund balance at the end of the year. So, but that is an expense we have to figure out how to cover. The other one's potentially a little more expensive. Microsoft operating licenses for Windows 10 is usually paid in December. It's about 30 grand. Microsoft, we've been working with Microsoft to come up with a different kind of agreement, and we weren't able to get the payment invoiced for the payment last year. So there's $30,000 roughly floating out there potentially. What we're hoping to do is by redoing the agreement, they'll take the money in the budget that was for the December 22 payment and apply that, and we won't have to make a double payment 2021 this year, so 2022. So it could be up to $30,000. Money was in the budget last year, rolled into the ending balance. Plus, we'd like to get the payment out of December and move it up earlier in the year, so we're not playing that game with the big ticket item like that. So, anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Any questions for Jeff?
No, sir. You're getting off easy today. Come on, slugger.
She just beat Jeff King out. Number of pages.
Could you email this to me, Jen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And,
So on the 2nd, I invited elected officials, directors, and their budget staff to meet with me to kind of go over what's expected over this next year and the 2023 budget build. We appeared to have a majority of everybody there, either in the room or on Zoom. I spoke about the following. We touched base on structural deficit. I talked about inflation rate and the cumulative inflation rate over the last decade being 22.5% and what that means in relation to the structural deficit that the county faces. We talked about the calendar and that I was integrating the budget calendar into all of their Google calendars, and that I would send invites out for all the due dates, and that the statutory due dates would be listed in there. All those invites went out yesterday, flooded everybody's inbox there. We discussed the first supplemental due date being April 8th. Budget due dates workshops will start after fair, and the proposed budget adoption date being November 8th, I believe. And that gives us a wiggle room for a couple more dates if we need to roll over further. Supplemental process is going to be completely different than what they're used to seeing. Like Rob and Jeff had spoke about, we're going to go through that help desk portal. That way there is an audit trail for the supplemental, which I was previously having to document through Google or spreadsheets, basically. This provides another avenue of audit trail. As well as its ability to be accessed electronically. So now, I won't have to, there won't just be random supplemental requests sitting on my desk or in a box somewhere. They'll all be housed electronically in one spot that I can access from anywhere. We discuss budget reports every month. The auditor's office posts budget reports to a shared drive. They were being housed under Klickitat County Forms shared drive. Didn't quite make sense to me, so I worked with the auditor's office. We got those moved over to the budget folder, shared drive folder. Let everybody know and walked through that with screen share. Over the course of the last month or so, well, actually a couple months, I'd been building a wage and benefit form for countywide. I put it in a Google worksheet. I then shared it with every elected and department head to verify my data in there. That was to capture that 4% COLA that's not budgeted, so that we can have a running idea of what that number is going to look like. I asked, now elected and their directors and their budget staff doesn't have the ability to go in there and actually change the data themselves because it's such a massive workbook, but they do have the ability to comment. So I ask that they keep that updated by assigning comments to me when they have staff changes, so that as we go through this year with all of the cuts that we made to the budget, we have a better understanding to be able to monitor what's going on and keep up to speed with that. We also went over assets every year. Directors have to put together some asset lists for the auditors. It's a statutory requirement by the SAO. And so again, another Google sheet went out. The only list that I had looked like had been copied year over year. So with our last audit and the new building and the amount of surpluses that we've had and are going to have, I asked that everybody did their due diligence on really getting every item that they have on this list. I know it's a ton of work. I beg for forgiveness, but if we could really get a baseline of what inventory and assets, small and attractive and capital assets that we have, that the goal would be that they update this list throughout the year as they purchase or as they surplus, instead of doing this mass push once a year and stressing everybody out. So they seem to be on board with that. It is taking a lot longer than it would normally do, but they really are digging in, counting their furniture and whatnot. We are gonna be looking at policy related to capital, related to assets. There's no like bottom line number threshold. So the finance committee, I believe, is going to be talking about that, but Brenda also spoke to assets and was able to answer any questions for anybody.
Good, man.
Mhm.
So how does that work as far as on their asset list with, like, we've been doing a lot of surplusing, but we also have things that we're taking action today on setting that. Well, but we actually haven't taken action yet. So they're working on these lists that are they anticipating doing it and they're just going ahead and modifying them now versus, or do they doing them and then, oh, well, now after April, when stuff is actually gone, they have to adjust their list because those things are off of them.
They will be adjusting their list, and it'll be something as simple as I've told a couple people they can just strike through, they can leave a comment. Right now, it's just raw data collection, and that once that they get all of the data into one sheet, then I will sort and I will organize, and then we'll get it out to where they can make adjustments as they go forward.
Jen's working with Gordy and Angie too, because obviously everything in this building has to be documented, all the
Right.
furniture. So,
Right. Okay, so that's all I have about the budget meetup, and I've attached my notes there if you were further interested in that. I had my notes printed out, and as well as those sheets for staff to leave it or to take as they left. The last page that you have in your packet is related to 2022 budget general purpose dollars usage. I was asked to compile and analyze where our 2022 general purpose dollars were going. And those general purpose dollars meaning, excuse me, property tax, sales and use tax, landfill, and reserves. So I've developed a dashboard and sent a link to you all this morning. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at that yet. But this is a printout of that dashboard, and then I've shared my screen so you can see. If you click on the link, this is where you're gonna go. I've created workspaces for us. So the BoCC finance is the workspace that I share with the three of you and Rob. Within that, you're gonna go to the 2022 financials. The 2022 revenue is where this one's housed. And this is what the dashboard's gonna look like. So it starts with the program areas and where the general purpose dollars go to for these program areas. Lee, can you move the Zoom screen down a little bit? Thank you. So the blue is the human services. Red's gonna be community development. you hover over these when you're in this link, it'll show you exactly how much goes to community development, being $2.5 million. The orange is general government at 6.7. Public safety, law, and justice is 9.5. This total is up to about $19 million, I believe. You click on this chart, it will take you into the report behind it. You can toggle and click the drop down, and then you can see the detail of every department and fund within there and how much is each department or fund is subsidized those dollars.
Well, you took my ask and went way more, which I love.
I'm
That's what I do.
blown away.
Is this? Will this, or is this information going to be available to the public in some way eventually? Or
I'm still working on how to be able to do that.
okay,
At this,
so this would be super for some folks.
I'm not
Let's-
sure that Smart Sheets can integrate to the, I'm hoping that I could integrate the dashboard from Smart Sheets
Onto
to
the
the web
website.
page. I'm not really sure. There is software out there that can do that.
I saw what you did
Let's start
there.
with it cost about $100,000.
You think I'm crazy?
I took notes.
That way when you come back with 23, it sounds better, is that what you're saying?
Hey, I listened to you guys. I took notes. I'm learning.
No, I wanted this because I didn't want the grant dollars muddying up the waters. I wanted the public to be able to see where their actual dollars they're giving us, where it's spent. Without, cause you look at public health and it says 2.3 million and they think they're spending that. They're really spending $100,000 or something. So I wanted unmuddy, easy to read, and she just, once again, hit it out of the park.
So to further go into that, those public health and senior services, those are all special revenue dollars. Those funds are 100s to the 400 funds. Those are subsidized with landfill and cumulative reserve transfers. That's this side right here.
Right.
So there's no tax dollars that are budgeted to go to those areas. And this side where the tax dollars are, the general fund is subsidized with the tax dollars and some landfill. So this section here is all general fund. So as you can see, the largest there is going to be the sheriff at 5 million subsidized. Buildings and grounds at almost 1.5. Budget and IT, which is the majority of IT, at 1.3. Now they do purchase all technical and software items for the entire county. And then the PA and the assessor, and it just kind of goes down from there.
Right. I wanted to get a breakdown of what percentage of tax dollars is actually used for criminal justice.
Each one of these charts I do have set up that if you click on them, you can again drill into what the raw data is. And they're all collapsible and expandable.
And the crazy thing is I asked her for this last week and I told her, hey, no hurry, whenever you get time. And here she is like 4 days later.
So you could see all the revenues that they have budgeted. So the top line, which is blue, is going to have their budgeted revenues and their budgeted expense and then the revenue items that they have budgeted that they will receive. Road specifically has restricted funds, so they receive their own property tax, obviously, you know that. And gas tax, those are all restricted to their fund. So their budgeted difference is that 500,000 of the landfill dollars that we put in there. Let me know if you guys have any issues accessing that link. Your permissions are set to view and comment. So if you you can't change anything, so don't worry about that. Or you shouldn't be able to
No,
change anything.
we had that discussion 2 weeks ago.
If you'd like to leave a comment, you just hover over the line over here, you'll see that actual comment symbol that looks like a text message symbol. You just add it, type it in there. and hit enter. I'm not sure, because I'm still fairly new to Smart Sheets, I'm not sure that I will get a notification, but I'll
Check it.
I'll look out for that, yeah. So that is in regards to that. Any questions related to the dashboard? Okay. I emailed all of you a 2022 budget book. I know it was about 200 pages. That is, if I don't hear anything back about any mistypings or errors, I will go ahead and move forward with getting that published to the website, which is currently still being built. Shelby has been awesome in helping me do that. So we're finalizing that today.
I haven't had time to look through the whole thing, but I will do it by the end of the week.
Mostly just the first 18
I
pages.
figured you're, mainly looking for
The-
typos and
The
spell
19
checking.
through the 200s, those are all of the required resolutions and then the line item
I didn't look at
detail.
those.
Yeah,
Did
that'll put you to
first
sleep.
18.
Yeah, as I say, the first 18 I've kind of
Followed
looked
your
at.
instructions.
Thank you.
It's nice
I
that-
appreciate that.
It's nice to start having everything in one place instead of having to search.
And then finally, the 2021 financials. I spoke with the auditor's office this morning. The auditors, the treasurers, and the Klickitat system administrator are trying to get a final close and roll done. Hopefully that'll be done by the end of March. There are some big ticket items in there. I know specifically that the ARPA money, getting that moved over to the general fund, is still tied up into that process as far as the specific accounting to that. So in the meantime, I am working on compiling very kind of similar in Smart Sheets so that you guys can go back and access it at any point in time, the information. I'm working on trying to get the fund book developed in there, and some tentative numbers of where we're sitting on 2021. That is all I have.
Comments?
Nope, you get 2 thumbs up from me. You only got
So-
1 from him, remember that.
I said slugger before you walked up here, but you didn't have to knock it out of the park, Babe Ruth.
That's my job.
Yep,
No, you did.
that's
You
all
always
she
have
ever
to.
does is knock it out of the park.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jeff.
The problem is you're setting yourself way up here on a pedestal now, so everything's gotta be way up there.
So can I just go?
The bases are loaded.
Yeah.
We're clean up.
Yeah.
So as far as HR, I only have a few things to add. The Long-Term Care Trust Act, I just wanted to give you guys another update on that. The governor had decided that they are going to delay the program implementation until July of 2023. We had already taken some premiums from the employees. Those are in the process of getting refunded. They did give some updates on some of the programs as well. Previously, if you were 68 or born in 68 or older than that, then you wouldn't qualify for premiums, or you would have to pay the premiums and you wouldn't qualify for benefits from the program. Now they have kind of stated that you will get prorated benefits if you were born before 1968, so that is a plus. Another program improvement that they have stated is if you work in the state of Washington but do not live in the state of Washington, you would be able to be exempt from
Opt
them
out.
collecting the premiums, and you would be able to opt out from that. So hopefully they will work on some of those other issues that they were having as far as getting the services outside of the state as well.
That brings up a question you might know the answer to. If they're allowing people outside the state to opt out, what happens if somebody moves here later in life? Do they just not qualify for this program because they didn't pay into it, or do you know that answer?
I don't know that answer because they did say if you opted out of it originally, you were not, that it was a forever decision. So you would not be able to opt back in at a later date. But if you were to move, I don't know. That would maybe be part of the program improvements that they're working on until July 2023.
Might be like a qualifying event.
Yes.
To let you.
Yes. So just an update on that. Another thing, Code 54, as of February 28th, was gonna go away per the resolution. We still have employees that are using code 54. It is not, it's the emergency paid sick leave bank. And it only qualifies for employees now. Before it qualified if they had dependents that needed care, or if they weren't able to go to school, things like that. So now code 54 is only for the employee if they have to quarantine, or they are showing symptoms, or they have tested positive. As of today, we've had approximately 100 employees use code 54 since it was first implemented back in June of 2020. And so our question would be is if we want to continue the use of code 54 until the end of the fiscal year, or if we want to stick with the end date as of February 28th, 2022 per the resolution.
And I think we'd recommend go through the end of the fiscal year, or have you consider that. The mask mandate's going away mostly, but COVID isn't necessarily going away. So we have employees still potentially who will get it and potentially need that. So rather than let it expire, maybe just let it go through the end of the fiscal year.
Both look my direction first, that's fine.
Question, if I may. How have we, because one of the things that we observed during 2020 were sick leave banks went up significantly because there was no sick leave because they all just charged everything against code 54, which is, I mean, that's a fiscal liability that's out there, it's still out there. And so I guess that'd be my question is what impact does that have, and what impact could it potentially have if we continue this through the rest of the fiscal year?
Yeah, so code
which is
50
the end of the year.
Yeah,
So
code
it's a pretty big
54
extension.
It is, because it allows up to 80 hours of sick leave for the employee to use, and they wouldn't have to touch any of their sick leave. Right. And so if you think that.
For a specific reason, for COVID only.
So if we have, 250 employees, there is that possibility that there's another 150 employees that would qualify for 80 hours of the.
Is there a way that we can transition this program in the existing hours and or banks that people still have in their COVID sick leave to make it that they need to use their personal sick leave before they get the COVID sick leave? That way, if for some reason they don't have any personal sick leave, they would still have the COVID option available as a backup. We wouldn't be front loading the system, we'd be back loading the system.
My only concern would be of the employees that weren't made to do that previously. But anything's possible. And the code 54, the emergency paid sick leave, is a one-time deal. You get the 80 hours. If you use 42 hours, then you get that remaining balance through the end of the year. You don't get another 80 hours in addition to the 80 hours that you've already used. So those 100 employees that have already used it, they won't get to benefit from that again.
Right, they will just use their regular sick
They will
leave.
just be required to use their sick leave, yes.
So in the lack of any direction or action, it's already expired. So one thing we would need to know today, if possible, is there was an employee who went out on COVID leave right before, like a couple days before it expired. And we think they should be able to use up to that 80 hours just because the deadline came after they were out on leave. It doesn't seem fair that they would be arbitrarily stopped at 2 or 3 days versus the full 80, but there's only one that I'm aware of that's in that situation.
The other
That one
option would-
I'm totally fine with. They started beforehand, you're grandfathered in, you've made it through it. I'm glad you survived.
That's my opinion of that one too.
Thank you.
As to continuing on, I'm personally conflicted. COVID is becoming endemic. It's going to be around forever. It's literally going to be the common cold is so long as it remains to be OMI. And to give all of our employees an extra 80 hours, a one-time 80 hours, I'm going back and forth on that one.
See, this would be a good reason to not make a decision today and make a decision next week.
Yeah.
The other idea too is if 80 hours was too much because of the quarantine times and how CDC has changed that. Now, if most are 5 days, which would be 40 hours. So,
Yeah, I'm still on the front load versus back load part, and I'm leaning towards the other direction. Because of, there's a lot of employees with 300 hours of sick leave that they will never use most of them before they leave. Yes, I would rather chew on this until next week, but I'm open to ideas and discussions to help me chew on it until next week.
I mean, we're already past that. I mean, it
we are.
expired.
Yes, yep.
So I guess I don't see necessarily the harm. Yeah, can you give us a little, let me think
Maybe we
about
could
it.
add it to the workshop on the 17th if you wanted to, as opposed to a Tuesday meeting.
Because it is,
Sure.
I mean, I would say for me, I'm not, like, anybody that ran out or wouldn't, I would be okay with, let's get some help to those folks.
Or people that don't have sick leave.
Right,
come in
that
and get
either they don't
emergency
have enough
authorization.
or something.
I'm good
then
with
we can-
that one
I'm good
too,
with that.
because-
I'm having trouble, as Commissioner Anderson said, at some point, we have to transition into, that's,
What your sick
it's
leave
regular
is
sick
for.
leave. That's what sick leave is for. It doesn't really matter what you're using it for, now, I obviously supported it before when it was a pandemic and it was really outside the normal, and it was the stuff with, quarantining and all that, which is not typical of, so I totally supported it, but I think we're transitioning into something else. And so
Maybe we can look at the
So-
sick leave banks across the employees and just as a data point to see how many employees might be at that no sick leave or at the lower end of that.
Right, I think that would
And
be
look
good
at
for
40
the
hours
seven-
and see what the potential
Cur-
impact could be.
Potentially, though, we could disband this program after this last person that's grandfathered, and set up a different type of an event, a situation that kind of used this bank a little bit in our reserve over here. That, like I said, if they do have a COVID and they don't have sick leave, you come forward asking for an emergency declaration to use this over here. And because I don't want to screw people that don't have any sick leave, but I don't think that's the common case.
One of the things I think we also have to be mindful is, that it's attached to this emergency one-time issue, so that it doesn't become a past practice, doesn't become an ongoing issue with the represented employees, that it does transition out and away, looking
Right,
at
well,
these things.
our state of emergency ended last summer, so.
So we'll get some more data and bring it.
It would be good to know what, pick a point in time, whether the end of 2020, the end of 2021, and what the accumulated sick leave hours for all the employees are, to see, did our sick leave hours go way up? When you're looking at those, and that would be an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I would be curious. I mean, I hate,
sick leave banks went up during a pandemic.
yeah, because I would be curious, and again, I don't want to put a bunch of time on your, but I would be curious essentially how many employees we have that say have less than 40 hours of sick leave bank. I know how many we probably have that have 200, but how many of them are actually in jeopardy if this was an issue?
And Commissioner Christopher would like it in a beautiful little smart sheet, just like what
Color
Jen did.
coordinated with crayons like IT does for.
We're just gonna have a piece of paper and I'm gonna use my
literally
just
crayon.
Crayons, yeah.
I am not gonna
Okay with
compete
that.
with that.
Well, that's a good lead into the next, not that, but the
Crayons.
topic is a good lead into the next subject of overtime.
Yes, so the overtime,
it.
yeah. I just ran the overtime report for 2021, and so I'm working on getting those numbers together. I'm gonna gather the numbers from the previous years before COVID happened to make sure that we're on the same path and that it's very similar and average hours, things like that compared to previous years. And
So we know
provide
that-
those reports at the next monthly update.
So even if the hours stay the same, we know the cost goes up because wages go up. And, but it's good to take a multi-year look, a couple years before the pandemic, to see if at least the hours are, are staying roughly the same, because should we get into a, continue down the path of having to make additional budget adjustments, sometimes the unintended consequences increased overtime to cover the workload, and which can wind up being as costly or more costly. And while most people think overtime is controllable, it is in some cases. Public safety in those areas, it's really truly the emergency. So we would expect to see a trend line for the public safety folks, but it's a data point, and it's at the very least it'll give us a new
So
baseline.
do we have much overtime that's not in the public safety sector? I mean, I thought for the most part, it's either all there, dang near all of it there.
Public Works, right?
Public Works, Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management.
It's about 400,000.
425.
It's close to $500,000, so it's a significant amount of, but significant budget impact. In most cases, budgeted. But anyway, it's just another data point that we think is important, that we should continue to watch over, as we continue to deal with.
How often do you look at that, by the way?
Honestly, not very often recently. I tried to do it quarterly. And so
Even
yes.
quarterly is fine, because it's just one of those that if you go, whoa, what's going on there? It'd be
Exactly,
nice to know
yes.
quarterly versus at the end of the year.
We used to look at it monthly, but
Yes.
it was
Monotonous.
sitting on,
Yeah.
there wasn't enough.
Quarterly's,
Yeah, quarterly should be about right.
Okay. Well, I can provide both then, the year to date totals for this year at the next update, and then I will provide the totals for 2020.
unless you see any red flags, and then present that as whenever you want.
Okay.
And finally, I think everybody's aware that March 12th, the mask mandate mostly goes away. There is still a requirement for healthcare settings. And I'm
Commissioner
not sure if
Rose.
that applies to some or part of health department, but I'll be talking to Director Quinn about that. And correctional facilities are, and we'll be talking more to the PA about whether additional conversations about whether jails are considered correctional facilities, or if that's a state term for state facilities.
But I know he corrected that. He had that, and then he corrected it because it was law enforcement and correction, because they administer medical aid. And then we were kind of exempt from that because ours didn't. And then he went back to everybody wears a mask.
So in those
that
areas,
reads.
I'm not sure of the extent yet. And I personally have to wait for L&I information. This is what is on L&I. So whether we get any more definitive information between now and the 12th, this may be what it is. And we'll work with the prosecuting attorney to see what impact it may have on these departments. But for the majority of employees and departments, the 12th is the masks are no longer required. So that's all we know as of today. Any questions for HR?
Thank you all.
Thank
Great
you.
job today.
I'm gonna go get my crayons.
You brought 3 numbers
Yeah.
in.
You gotta remember your crayons for me.
I mean, Jen almost ran out of colors. There's not many more colors on that wheel.
Yeah, I want to see yeah.
Yeah, that was full VGA almost. I would entertain a motion, gentlemen.
I would make a motion to recess for lunch back at 1 o'clock.
I would second.
There's a motion and a second to recess for lunch, returning at 1 PM. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Being as it is 1 o'clock, we are going to call to order the regular business meeting for the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners. Let the record show all three commissioners are present, and we will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the business agenda as presented.
I would second the motion.
There is a motion and a second to approve the business agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the commissioner meeting minutes from February 22nd, 2022 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the commissioner meeting minutes from February 22nd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We will now move into citizen comment. And you will be given 3 minutes per individual, and I'm going to pull out this. We will begin in the room, as is always our new custom. Please give us your name and where you live. Not
Those-
that we don't know.
Are those mics green down there, by the way? Perfect, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for taking time to listen to my comment. I don't know if you got the information I think it was last week, I complimented Lee Snell because the sound was a million times better. I could actually hear, so I thank you. And today I actually do want to talk about communication. The reason I'm here in person is I believe it's imperative that in order to have a functioning democratic society, that we communicate face to face. Social media, as you know, and Zoom don't really cut it. In any venture, whether it's a fire circumstance or anything else, if it fails, it's usually traced back to a communication failure. To start with, all my communications I hope but I know from county officials have always been professional. But in other cases, I know that's not true. I want to address an uncomfortable but real concern regarding county communication. As you know, one member of this commission has used electronic and other means to communicate inappropriately with constituents and members of the community. Those behaviors include name calling and using visual media to transmit inappropriate gestures, among others. It's time for the county commission, for this commission, to address the issue formally. Pretending the problem will somehow magically improve has obviously not worked. In reviewing your Klickitat County technology guidelines, which I gave to you, you can see several areas where behaviors have violated those guidelines. Frankly, I was actually in disbelief when I saw that it had been created in 2013. I think it should be reviewed and updated by next month's board commission meeting, if it's actually the most recent set, which I got from the Human Resources Department today. Those were put in place 9 years ago, and as you know better than anybody, a few things have changed regarding technology. I also included an additional set from a nearby governmental entity as a starting point, and I know that one was revised in 2020, probably to better support distance learning and remote meeting issues. Of course, no policy can control an individual in a given moment. It takes self-control and sometimes accountability to do that. Though unpleasant, it needs to be dealt with. I request that the board today take appropriate action to hold its members and itself accountable to the public and to common decency. It's past time to raise the bar. In my prior life, I was regularly reminded of a couple of key phrases when dealing with people. First, you don't have to explain what you don't say. Second, and important here today, what you allow, you endorse. I submit that this saying applies to this commission. What you allow, you endorse. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my comment.
Thank you. We will go online. *6, turn on your video, raise your hand, get our attention somehow if you would like to provide public testimony or comment. I am not seeing anyone. Okay, we'll go back to the room. If is somebody who'd like to provide public comment.
Old people can't walk around. Anyway, Ron Kinsella, Goldendale. All right, couple of things going up front. The 3-minute rule that you have on testimony, is that established by guidelines for the count or the commissioners to work on? Exactly how did that come by? Too many people and too much time used, or what?
So how we do it is we will respond at 1:25. That way you can give public comment. This
Okay.
is not usually a back and
Oh,
forth.
okay,
So
so
if you ask your questions, we will answer them at 1:25.
Okay, so I can talk now?
Yep.
Do what I want to do. Okay, background now. I worry when I've been elected for a mayor in the city and did different jobs in different capacity. But one of the problems that I always stressed and I always felt, if we haven't got cooperation between the citizens and the people that runs whatever commission or a mayor or whatever, and we don't have good communication, you don't get lots of things done. I know what, I've been here long enough. In fact, when I first moved here 26 years ago, we were having similar problems in the county, or not different problems, but we was having county commissioner problems dealing with some of the people. So we started a thing called Concerned Citizens for Responsible Government, a political action committee. And we became very active. We had lots of people show up. We had lots of participation. Sometimes because of the numbers of people, they would have to limit our time. One issue years ago, I spent an hour and a half sitting here explaining why we wanted to do something. I had 1,000 signatures from the county that wanted to do it. We still didn't win, but at least we had the time to put our information out there for everybody. So the point of it is, I had alligators, when I was the mayor, I had alligators that show up at every meeting. You have alligators here that show up at every meeting. And at the end of the day, when they would write articles in the newspaper about how things are going, and at the end of the day, almost verbatim, the one alligator was always on my case. He said, at least Ron, we don't agree with him sometimes, but he gives the opportunity to present our case and to talk about it in a civil manner. And that's the way we want it to work. My experience now, and that was in the past with the commissioners, we had the Concerned Citizens for Responsible Government. Sometimes we would have 10 or 15 people. Sometimes we would have 30 or 40, and depending on the issue and what we're going to talk about. Sometimes we'd have 3 of us, lots of times just 3 of us. But we were always able to present our story better. Once in a while they'd have to cut you off because there were so many people. But we never had to say, you're only going to get 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. So we didn't resent the fact that we didn't win a lot, but what we did is we were able to present our case. But lots of people in the community would come to other meetings we would have. The PUD, we would fill up the back room for a meeting. There was a big issue on the table, and we would fill it up. We had Canada nights. We had people come from the Tri-Cities to our Canada nights in those days. We
Ron.
filled up the gymnasium at one of the schools.
Ron, the reason that we limit it from whatever it was, 6 minutes to 3 minutes
Yeah.
is because in 25 minutes, you only hear from 4 citizens.
Yeah.
3 minutes is known all around the state, and it's part of Robert's Rules of Order usually for public comment. And so we actually limited it for that reason.
You were interrupted lots of times. It would go that long. Was it, you
Oh,
use
yeah, people would use the whole 6 minutes. But again, so this is the time for public comment, to
Yeah.
comment
Yeah.
to the commissioners is one.
Yeah.
Though what we have always said is though that we are more than welcome to accept a phone call, to meet with you over coffee, to like for your longer term, to talk about issues. I think all three of us have always said that we're happy to meet with you.
Well, it's important, from my perspective, and I don't come to all of them anymore, but I listen a lot. And it's bothersome to me that we've got two different places in this city, in this county, that can't have much of a conversation with the elected officials. The school board is the same thing. And I know what their problems are too, what they're worrying about, what they don't want to talk about, that kind of stuff. But you're never going to get anything settled and any continuity in your community when everybody's picking totally at each other all the time. That's the name of the game. Elected officials are the people employing, right? Basically. And I think it's just my idea, but I would like to present that case to you, just my case to you, just the way I'm talking to you now.
Thank you very much,
I
Ron.
appreciate the fact that it's a tough job that you have, but I also appreciate the fact there's 19,000 citizens or whatever we got. Anyway, you give me over time, right?
You're well beyond, and the reason I did is for your service as the mayor of the city, and we always usually give deference to those who have served. So thank you very much.
My one question is, did we buy a bond for this building or did we take a loan for this building?
Okay, we will answer that at 125. I'm sure
Okay.
Commissioner Sauter's writing that down. Thank you, Ron. We're
right,
just
thank
trying
you
to
very
keep it
much.
fair and equal for
Okay.
everyone.
Okay.
All right, we are going to go back online. If you would like to provide public comment, *6 if you're on your phone, raise your hand, turn your video on, and get our attention somehow. 7211, please give us your name.
Greg Wagner with C. I recently submitted a simple, polite public request to Mr. Christopher, and I got a very toxic and hateful reply from him. This would have been an employee of the county. How would that person been disciplined? Do you, Mr. Chairman, condone his behavior? This is not the behavior of a professional, ethical, civil commissioner. It is beyond what is expected. A simple answer was all that was needed. This man should be disciplined, and that's up to you. You should set an example as the leader of the commissioners and do something about it. This man, Mr. Christopher, wants everybody to speak civil to him, but this is how he talks to the citizens. Not only me, when he extended his finger to Lynn Mason, a lady who was just asking him a question then. And then the following week, he got all belligerent with her, and Mr. Sauter had to gavel him down. It's just a pattern of his behavior. He represents the county, and this is not a good representation. Citizens are civil. He isn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. We will go back in the room. Does anybody else have public comment that you would like to give? Okay, we are going to go back online again. *6. Raise your hand, turn your video on. Tracy.
Hello, commissioners. My name is Tracy McCune from Lyle, and I just had a couple questions for you. So I talked to a couple departments in Goldendale this week, and at two different times they were expressing some concern about long distance calling, saying that maybe I should take the 1-800 numbers down. Is there something going on with long distance calling in the county that we need to be aware of? The second question I have is tonight when you have your open house for the new building, will the items in the auction be available to look at that time? And then the third and fourth question is the Bingen Museum is interested in possibly getting one of your 4-drawer lateral file cabinets. And the Lyle Museum is interested in one of your mapping drawers. If those items can be available for a local nonprofit, then just let us know how to get those. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKeon. I will open it up again online. *6, unmute yourself. Turn on your video. I am not seeing anyone. I will open it again to anyone who has not spoke in the room. Would you like to provide public comment? Okay. Well, anyone in either who would like to provide public comment in the next 8 minutes is welcome to do so. Just get our attention. In the meantime, I'm sure we will be looking at some of the answers to the questions that have been asked.
I make a comment. You already take the comment.
As much as I would love to, we have the rules for a reason, and once we start breaking the rules, then everyone expects the same. So, but if you would like, I would be glad to come down there and you can tell me until someone else decides to ask for public comment. Will that work?
I'll just talk to you on the offline on the phone or something.
Okay. You can call me.
Not a big thing. It's just we're empty basically. We shouldn't be empty. That might be right now. The place should be full, or at least more than 3 or 4 of us.
Well, we have 40 people online, which if you've been to county commissioner meetings in the past, this was about average. If not, this was a good attendance. So I would say that we have more people now involved in the local government and being a part of it than we've ever had in the past on a weekly basis. Would you agree, Commissioner Sauter? Mr. King, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I was just going to ask, I was told that you had some questions for me from this morning's session. Wondering if you'd like me to be available during your board pending time today, or well, you've got a minute here. Thought I'd ask the question.
Would you gentlemen like to talk about it at board pending?
You guys.
Commissioner Sauter?
Remind me what it was.
Financing the sound panel.
The sound panels. Yeah, why don't you, as long as you're available for board pending, that would be great.
Okay.
All right.
I will be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last chance, if anyone would like to give public comment, get in touch with us. All right. Seeing as that we have a little bit extra time, Commissioner Christopher, would you like to respond to any of the commenters?
I will no longer be responding to cease in any fashion.
Any of the others? Okay. Commissioner Sauter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I would say the first thing I'm looking forward to is after Friday, we will be able to take our masks off. Not that I have not been I follow the rules. I'm a rule follower, but I will say from a communication standpoint, it has been, it's difficult. At least it is for me, as far as I like to be able to see people's faces and I like them to be able to see mine when we're trying to communicate with each other. First off, Mr. Barta, I definitely agree. Communication is almost always at the heart of any failure, as far as that there is a lack of communication, there is a perception of, and when people are not talking to each other, they kind of fill the holes with what they think the other party is thinking or feeling, and it is unfortunate. I also, Mr. Kinsella, I share and I've said this before, is it does make me, it bothers me that I do feel more cut off from citizens, even though we have a lot more people participating, or at least they're online, they're hearing and stuff, but I do worry that we are, even though we are, maybe they're here, that we are not connecting the way we should be or have in the past. And part of that is unfortunately, and I don't know which of the two of you, but I'd written it down as far as that we should be able to communicate in a civil manner. And that really is where the breakdown has happened. And it's unfortunate. I've talked about this before, is that we didn't have a lot of folks come in, although you would come in, actually both of you would come in from time to time. And it was more of a conversation, and we were able to do that. And for whatever reason, there has been a breakdown in our ability to be able to do that anymore, where people, and this is a problem, at least in my estimation, across the whole spectrum, that it's hard for us to have a civil conversation with each other, particularly when we don't agree about something. And as to the length of time, there was the 7-minute rule, which is what it was before. It was when I came, was actually in place before, and what I understood was that came out of, but prior to that, there was no time limit. It was just whoever came in, you were having a conversation, but they did have to start limiting it because there was too many people. And then that's what we found too, where we had so many people wanting to talk to the board that we would only hear from 3 or 4 of them. And we had 10 or 12 people. And so we extended the amount of time that we were doing for citizen comment, and we did that. And 3 minutes is a pretty standard across the state. We were very generous with our time. I don't think public comment is really, that's not the answer, is because that is kind of a formal process, and it's really frustrating to me that I want to just go sit down and have a conversation with you and we can work stuff out. And that's not when that needs to be happening. It needs to be, we can't do it in 3 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it is. We need to be talking to each other. And so I guess I share both of your frustration with that communication has broken down, because it has. And I don't want to point fingers, because I think we're all responsible for that. As to the earlier question, or I guess ask, as far as, as far as the technology guide, this is from 2013. I have this idea that we have a more updated, it's not this, but we do have something as far as how you use technology that I think we have a more updated just somewhere else. But the core principle of it is, yeah, that you don't misuse technology. You don't use it for things that you shouldn't. As to how the crunchy thing that we don't want to talk about is, what does this board do? The other board members don't work for me. They don't work for the chair. They are separately elected folks. And basically the only discipline that is available to any elected official is as is laid out in the RCWs for discipline. And I'm not really going to get into people's behavior other than I think we should always be respectful in our communications, whether I'm an elected official or not. That's how my mama taught me, and I think it's a good way to live. As to your question on bonding versus loan, I don't know the exact term. We actually went in we're part of the state pool. That was the most advantageous. So we didn't go out for a bond. We actually, I think it was called the local program. So we were able to go the state pools. We got to use the state's bonding capacity and their rate. And so we got a really better than we could have got on our own. And it saved us some money because we didn't have to go get our own bond counsel. And so we basically used the state's, they have a program where the state packages all the asks together, puts it out under their thing as a bond, and then we get the proceeds from it. It's divvied out. So we were with several other projects. And so, but I do believe this was the largest one that the state had done for an individual for this building. So it's kind of yes and no to both of your questions as far as it's kind of a bond, kind of a loan, but it's a 20-year term. But it was a better interest rate than we could get doing it ourselves. So it's very low. And I've used 7 of the 10 minutes. So sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right. We're going to put a limit on you as well.
Yes, I used more than my 3 minutes. So.
Okay, I'll try to respond. The town hall tonight for the new building, the auction items will not be available as far as I know. We have most of our staff that's going to be here managing that, not over at the other building, opening that up. The museum, the 4-drawer cabinets and all the cabinets, those will be in the auction. You'll be welcome to bid on them. And I would hope with how many there are, they should go extremely affordable. Nonprofit. As for, I didn't understand your question, Tracy, about the long distance calling. I know the county itself, we are updating our long distance, how the phones operate, so that we will be able to save thousands of dollars a year by having no long distance fees. And that is a process that we've been going through, and then it took a little longer than expected. And finally, I do have a gavel and I can use it, and I have used it in my 20 years of volunteering and being involved in public service. And I have used it both on people that are speaking to me, as well as people that have been sitting on boards. We are human, we are emotional by nature, and sometimes we need to be reminded when to keep our mouths shut. I will say that in life, you usually get what you give. And Mr. Wagner, I spent an entire afternoon responding to your emails in which I asked you very kindly and very politely to show respect. And I think you have done a much better job of that since that time. And I would like to thank you for doing that. We may not see eye to eye. I try to understand where you're coming from and what you want. And I've always tried to, as you say, in what you stated, the professional, ethical, civil behavior. And how I usually present that is by showing it myself. I have no control over my seatmates. I also am a firm believer that you praise in public and you chastise in private. And that was handed down from my mama. Like Commissioner Sauter said. And so having conversations about, you know, our own decorum amongst us, if we could talk in private, that would be great. But we're not allowed to discuss county business. But I will say though that I read that email that was forwarded by you to the commissioners that one of my seatmates sent. And that is not how I interact, and that is not how I would hope anyone else doing any job professionally would interact. And I would hope that we all take that to heart. And as for the policy, finally, Mr. Barta, yeah, it probably is that old, and yeah, it probably could use to be updated, but so does my Shorelines Management Act, my Critical Areas Ordinance, my Comprehensive Plan, and about 500 other things. So we will get to that right as soon as it gets put on the priority list. And with that, it is now 1:30, and we are going to close public comment. All right, next up, we have a public hearing to accept public comment on a proposal to declare certain county-owned miscellaneous property as surplus and to set a date for the sale and disposal of the surplus property at an online public bid auction by the Klickitat County Treasurer. Staff report, do we have? I saw them out there. Is that? Oh, no, I saw Gordy. I did not see. Treasurer Gallagher, are you there? Okay, we will give him a second. Well,
we're here for 1:30, we may have the wrong place. The discussion about under canvas.
Over at the courthouse.
Superior Court.
Superior.
Upstairs in the courthouse.
So I have permission to leave.
that would be great. I'm looking for my usual. Oh.
Due to the number of offices that moved into the new county services building, the treasurer and the public works director had discussions and determined what would be in the best interest. Instead of storing excess furniture, to go ahead and have another online auction. And so both treasurer and staff, public works staff work together. Photograph, list all the items, and they have, it's mostly the treasurer and his staff that have gotten the online auction, perfecting it and making it easier to use, more efficient. That's where we are here today, the board's public hearing to take comment about the matter.
Thank you. Would you mind muting Lynn? I think she's inadvertently unmiked. I can hear her shuffling papers. Okay, we are going to open the public hearing to public comment for or against the proposal. If anybody would like to provide public testimony, please unmute because it doesn't look like there's anyone in the room. *6. I am not seeing anyone. I will ask Tracy.
Yes, hello, commissioners again. So just one comment. Will these items be individually sold, or will they be put as, you know, all of them together?
Usually we don't respond. This is public comment, not public question. Tracy, I'm really sorry. This is public comment, not public question. I am sure that we will have a small discussion when it gets to that point, and your question will likely be answered. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment? I am not seeing anyone. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comment? I am not seeing any. We are going to go to the board, may ask staff. Treasurer Gallagher, are you there?
Yes.
I have a question, and that is, are all of the items going to be sold individually, or are they going to be set in large lots?
They'll be in lots. There will not be anything individual. It will be in groups. Like, for example, there's a desk and a chair and a filing cabinet, for example, in a lot.
So what about the larger, more expensive items, like the larger filing cabinets? Are those going to be sold?
That is true. Sorry, I forgot about those. The fireproof cabinets there are some that are lots of 2 and some that are single lots.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Treasurer Gallagher, for the update?
No, I don't. I mean, we're just plowing through all the stuff that's there, so.
Got it. Seatmates, any questions, discussion?
Yeah, back to the treasurer, the lots, like I get a desk and a chair and a file, sort of like a suite, an office suite. But I do see, so there's like office chairs, roughly the same number of desks, bookshelves, that kind of stuff. What about like the waiting chairs and the different, where there's a lot of them? What are those lots if people, maybe they want 2, they don't want?
So there is stacks of chairs. So let's say that there was the chairs that were in the commission's office. I want to say there was a stack of them. So they're in a stack of 8. If they were similar, there probably is. I mean, we tried to just lot things as we worked through them in the different buildings. This is 4 or 5 different buildings and areas of material. We tried to do, the easiest that we could, not the easiest, but the best where we could put things together.
It's okay. You can say easiest.
Well, I mean, we did try to, because there's some of the things that were, let's say, across the street in the old Annex 5, and then you finally got to the WSU building at the fairgrounds later, but we didn't have the luxury of putting it all together and saying, okay, we're going to put all these things together. We took it as we could. And so basically when we went through Annex 4, we said, okay, these things all go together. So we put them into a lot. We have some lots with a table and 4 chairs, for example, because it seemed to be all there together at the same time, and we put it together. So, so that's, we just tried to do our best to put the surplus items together, and putting them individually would be a lot of work on staff also.
Okay, I will ask one more time. Is there anyone else who would like to provide public comment? All right, is there any discussion by the board? I would entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the resolution declaring the listed items as surplus for disposal by the county treasurer at an online public bid auction. The online auction will start on March 24th, 2022 and end on March 30th, 2022. My motion is to approve.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Since we've already jumped through discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank
Motion
you.
carries. Thank you, Treasurer Gallagher. All right. 1:40, good timing. All right, miscellaneous reports. The White Salmon Valley Metropolitan Park District is requesting consideration by the board for a waiver of the conditional use permit application fee and the environmental review SEPA fee for their proposed aquatics facility to be located in White Salmon. Do we have a staff report?
All I can tell you is that the school district submitted a request for a waiver of the conditional use permit and then the secret review. And that's what's before you now. There were some concerns raised about the board's authority. What authority do you have to waive fees? And I have had discussions with the planning department. I don't know, Gloria, do you have any kind of an update or review about the history of this application process?
The one, oh, yes. This is their second go-around, I guess you could say, with getting a conditional use. And the SEPA, they did in 2019, were granted the conditional use. And unfortunately, there's the 2-year time period, there's 1 year, and then they were able to get 1 6-month extension and then 1 more. And in that time frame, they weren't able to start the project. So that is why they're doing this again. And one thing that was commented back in 2019 at our Board of Adjustment meeting, one of the board members asked if the county waived their fees at that point, and no, they had not. So I had mentioned that to the pool district, and that is, they came forward this time with that request.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add that if the fees are waived, it will impact the planning department's budget. They'll have to pay for all advertising out of their own budget. Usually this is done by the applicant.
And,
Go ahead.
and then I know we're looking at large projects and going over $1 million. So potentially they will be involved with a reimbursement agreement, as well as many other projects that we're having the forthcoming future.
Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if there's anybody from the Parks and Rec District online that was,
I don't believe there is.
okay.
Doesn't look like it.
See anybody?
But I will ask, is there anyone from the Parks and Rec District on the Zoom call? Does not appear so. Any discussion, Commissioner Christopher?
I guess all I would say is, while I feel of interest to the pool district, I can sympathize with them, but in the sake of being uniform across county, and we have this issue with other developments, I have to stick to what's fair is fair.
Commissioner Sauter, thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a no as far as on the fee waiver request. I think again, they are a taxing district. They do have, they do get resources. I think, it's not like we, the county, are making money off of this. These are basically, these fees are just to cover the costs of publishing and whatnot. I'm generally more, I'm sympathetic, but I do think that I think the district has the ability to pay. We also granted a not insignificant grant to the district when they were first starting out, because they were a year away from getting any tax revenue. And so we kind of front loaded the district. And as I said, I'm sympathetic, but I think for consistency, I do think there is a difference between where we have granted building permit waivers in the past for volunteer fire departments. That's a little different in my mind than this district, and it's not a huge amount of money, but I just think to be consistent, I'm gonna have to say no.
I would, in this situation, I think it's actually the perfect timing for looking at this. Because if we were to grant a waiver of fees and all expenses, the county could be on the line for many thousands of dollars because something is going across over in the courthouse right now, where if we did not have that reimbursement agreement in place, the county would be footing that bill. You would not think that that would be the same case with a pool district, but times have changed and things are different. And so at this time, I'm going to have to be a no as well on the request. With that being said, I'm sure the Parks District is going to be looking for more funds from us very soon. So we'll continue that discussion in my mind.
Yeah, I would second most of what they said. It's, you know, sympathetic, but this is a project over 1 million. I think it's, you know, in the state that we are in our county, everything we do is scrutinized and everything we do has potential litigation. I'm glad, like Commissioner Anderson said, that we're not on the hook for the potential litigation that's going there. So I would like to just stay even and consistent and say they would need to abide by the policy we have in place. So I would be a no.
Okay. Well, that definitely does that one. Thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with all 6 items.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with all 6 items. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay,
You want the bill, sir?
please.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the accounts payable warrants in the amount of $161,992.17 and the payroll benefit warrants in the amount of $0 for the date ending March 7th, 2022.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to pay the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, it looks like we have nothing on the agenda for unfinished business. We will move to board pending. Mr. King, are you there?
Yes, Chairman Anderson, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I was just told by somebody that was watching the morning meetings that there were some questions about the communications 911 dispatch room ceiling soundproofing project and potential funding. So
Commissioner Christopher has, I think, the best briefed on this, please.
So yes, I testified this morning to, I guess I would say, finalized discussion on whether we were going to be doing the soundproofing this year in the 911 dispatch or not. That funding, I believe, is 25 to 30,000 to put those sound panels up. And I was looking for an official yes or no from this board on whether they were going to do that. Now, that money is not budgeted in our non-capital improvement list. So if they were going to be doing it this year out of budget, I advised them that you would have some funding in your fund because of grants that you didn't know you were going to get and you now have. So you might have some excess there. So that's what I informed them, and they wanted potentially to ask you questions on that, sir.
okay, point of clarification, it's not grant funding. It was REIT that was received last year above the budgeted amount for 2021. It's in fund balance in Fund 135.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Sauter? Anything you'd like to say?
Actually, I'm gonna
So I just want to clarify. So Jeff, we received more REAP money last year than anticipated, and that money has now been transferred to Fund 135. And what you're asking for is to use the REAP money that is eligible from last year above and beyond that you would like to do the soundproofing project.
I had contacted Commissioner Christopher to say that might be an option. If, you know, that for funding, because I know what budget for this year is like and those funding streams are. And but yes, that is correct. We received more REIT revenue than anticipated in 2020 and 2021 by a significant amount in both years. And we no longer receive that in Fund 135 anymore because that revenue stream reached a threshold that now by RCW, I believe, can't be used in the way we're using it in my department starting this year. I would have to verify all this with the fiscal manager and make sure my administrative assistant agreed with me, but there should be funds available if you wanted to proceed, and the amount of that project's estimate, you know, aligned with that. I just wanted to put that out there as an option on the table since I couldn't be here this morning.
I would go back to what I said this morning, that anything presented today, we probably shouldn't act on. We should probably take a week to think about if it is not an emergency situation so that we can make educated, accurate decisions. So it would be my recommended that if you wanted more testimony here today from anybody here, that we take it. If not, we chew on this and make a decision next week.
A couple of things, that the REIT that was going to Fund 135 is that second half, consider that second half. So when we enacted that sales tax, that second half is going to go away. So there's that. But we did withhold, we pulled it out and moved some other money around to go to that 135 because we were unsure of the strings attached to that money. The other part of it is if we make any changes to the CIP that's already been adopted, we need to go through a supplemental process. It is all part of the same process, not just the supplemental, but changes to the CIP have to go through a public hearing process as well.
Well, I think what you guys need is direction from the board. I'm not saying we're gonna do it, but do we want to look into it? And what's your feeling, Commissioner Sauter?
Yeah, I would say, as I said this morning, I was tentatively supportive before when this issue was raised, when we had to, we're trying to balance the budget. We had to take some things out of the capital improvement, and this was something that got pushed off a year. I was hopeful that once the dust settled on the 21 and we kind of knew that, it's really a relatively small amount of money. I mean, it's not, I mean, it adds up. And when you're trying to balance budgets, it's not budget dust. Just because I think this has been an issue that's been raised by personnel out in the room. I've witnessed it myself when we were out there, when it can be difficult to, there's kind of an echo in there when there's multiple calls going on, and then I wasn't there. I've not been in the building when they're having a hailstorm or a heavy rainstorm, but they say it's, and I believe them. And so I think this is something we need to get done. It's on for 23. I guess, so my question would be, when the additional REIT that we got, which was substantial just because the last couple of years have been kind of an outlier, they've been over and above. Did we already, I don't want to spend the same money more than once. That would be a question that I would have for the fiscal manager as we look at, as far as this fund balance and this, did we already anticipate that when we were calculating or not? And I'm not looking for an answer now. I don't think we did. And so if that is true, if we can confirm that, I would be fine with us, putting that on the list to go ahead and do it now, as far as, of course, go through the process. We got to update the CIP and go through the supplemental process. But if we can afford to do it now, rather than wait until 2023, I think I would be in favor of it. But I don't want to make a final decision, because I agree with Commissioner Christopher. I'm always saying we need to, let's stop and think about things. We know you're looking for some policy direction, but let's take a week and think this through.
I have not gotten to 135 on my analysis yet. So, but I did make a note this morning that would be my next priority.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Christopher, any thoughts?
No, I have nothing further to add. Like I said, that's why I want to wait a week and get, staff input, get finance input. They will come back and give us guidance and the answers to our questions that then we can make a sound decision.
And of course, I would follow the same suit. Look into it, get back to us, and we'd love your recommendation as well.
I can work with Jeff.
All right. Thank you both.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Jen.
All right. Board pending. Commissioner Sauter today. You have anything?
Nothing that can't wait.
You're good at saying that.
I know.
There's only so many more
I
times
know.
you can
That's
say
the
that.
that's the waiting part I'm talking about.
Commissioner Christopher, anything for board pending?
Not much. I already gave you the legislative stuff I sat through City Hall yesterday. City Council was quite long with multiple presentations. They did a REDS presentation. Jonathan with the hospital did, and then I kind of followed up on that, and then we went through, they asked questions about Annex 1, and got the whole layout of what all the buildings are going to do in the demolition process of all. Did not get pushback at all. There was a comment to potentially save the bricks, which we've heard that one before. So I told them we would be looking at that, and I can't speak for the board, but going that direction hopefully. And that was kind of where that was. The city did go into executive session and worked out a land funding agreement with Republic Services to give Republic Services some land now that it's public. In the Goldendale Industrial Complex, I probably should have turned on my mic the whole time. In the Goldendale Industrial Project, so they approved that land lease there, so Republic can start building a truck repair facility there on 2 different lots, actually. And that was kind of the city council update.
Okay. You have any questions?
No, I don't have a question, but I would do one board pending. But I was remiss. I've been working on, as this board charged me with, the Dallasport wastewater plant, its final disposition. We are getting ready to set a meeting. I've asked PUD I've had some preliminary discussions with Jim Smith as far as kind of set expectations as far as what we're, I think, looking for. They are getting their numbers together. My efforts are being also supported by staff with Gordy and Jeff, and I have been reviewing all that stuff. And then we're planning on sometime at the end of this month or the first part of April that I'll have the preliminary meeting, and they're going to make their pitch, and then I will report back to the board.
Are they gonna be able to make their pitch without us having all of our budget numbers reconciled, or are they gonna need to wait for that before they can make their pitch?
I believe their budget numbers are reconciled now. So we actually, that was one of the holdups because
Okay,
they were, wasn't that long ago. It's been fairly recent.
Second side question for you that you might know. I had a question last night and Gordy didn't know the answer. Did the Dallasport Wastewater Treatment Center receive any landfill gas funding when it was being done? Or do you remember?
I don't
can
recall,
look
I don't
back.
believe so. I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have anything to report currently, so we will move on to the annual meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation. You can try.
Two things. One thing I forgot to mention this morning is that at the request of Commissioner Christopher, we've been looking at fleet management software, and I've previewed two. We're going to look at a third, and then we'll bring it back for discussion with the full board to see next steps or what next steps may look like, but just let you know we're working on that. And I would add, as risk manager, I would urge we find a solution to fix the ceiling, the sound issue. I've been out with many, many meetings with employees. I've talked to Jeff King on the phone during a rainstorm where we couldn't hear each other. I've had many meetings with the union about it. So I hope we can find a way to get that project done. So I would recommend we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, annual meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation. We need to recess to begin that meeting, correct? I would take a motion to recess. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recess the Board of County Commissioner meetings so that the board members can attend the annual meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation.
I would second that meeting with my mic on.
Can you hear me?
There is a motion and a second to, and I will repeat it since the mic was off, to recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting so that the commissioners may attend the annual meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are recessed. We have a second one for the actual meeting.
It's in there. I had to find it.
I'm looking for it.
It's on page 144.
Well, the president of this one is Mr. Dave, so.
That's what I was looking for. I know it's.
Procedural sequence.
Page 144.
I'm trying,
Yeah.
you know which pages are 143 and 30.
Okay, I guess as I am, and my mic is on, as I am serving apparently still shortly, as chair of the Klickitat, I have it. The chairman or I will open the public meeting. I will open the meeting of the Klickitat County Public Corporation. I will call for the treasurer's report.
Clarification question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to elect new officers for this year, or are we keeping the same officers until next year? And if that's the case, what happens when we meet again in January?
Good question. We elect officers annually for this, and I'm trying to think of when did we?
Generally, you elect officers after an election.
Okay, okay.
At the end of
As long as we're not gonna throw a wrench into anything
Right.
next January.
when, after the November election, whoever's elected, the board will consider a resolution to appoint that person elect to the board.
Got it.
And then when the board meets, the first meeting in 2023.
We'll
have
elect
that person,
officers.
Ratified,
Right.
and then you will go ahead and then do
Okay.
the
Okay.
vice chair
Okay.
will officiate.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Ready for a treasurer report when you are, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so the beginning balance in the fund was $121,076.14. In 2021, there was no deposits or withdrawals. We earned interest in the amount of $36.13 for a total ending balance on 12/31 of 21, the balance was $121,112.27. It is that same balance at the beginning of 2022, which is $121,112.27. So far this year, we've earned $1.03 in interest. The balance to date, or ending date as of January 31, 2022, is $121,113.30. That is your treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. At this point, I would be, is there a discussion on the treasurer's report? If there is not, I would entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
I would move to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report as presented. Any further discussion other than those stellar interest earnings?
Yeah.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
It is surprising, 121,000 you can have in the bank all year and you made $35.
Yeah. Ooh, what to do with it all? Any other business to come before the Klickitat County Public Corporation?
No, sir.
If there is none, there being no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the annual meeting of the Klickitat Public Corporation.
So moved.
I will second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned.
All right. I will reconvene the meeting of the Klickitat County Board of County Commissioners, and we will move on to new business. Central Eastern Conservation District Manager Lauren Megger for a funding request for purchasing software for stream monitoring data management. Come on board.
So Central Klickitat Conservation District and Eastern Klickitat Conservation District started doing water quality back in 1998 in partnership with Klickitat County as part of the watershed management planning that happened in WIRA 30 and 31. They maintain 37 sites. 7 of those are continuous flow measurement, and they all have other measurement parameters, temperature, pH, etc. That data has been warehoused a variety of different ways over the years. Most recently, we were using Aquarius software, and that software transitioned to a new platform, and part of that platform transition required a data migration and investment in their new version of their software. So we looked at alternatives to either just manage that ourselves in Microsoft Access and other software platforms that are out there, and determined that this was the best cost scenario for us because of the staff time that would be involved in any other solutions, as well as outside IT expertise that would be required. So the cost to the conservation district was about $30,000, and then we recently had another piece of equipment that failed and was no longer supported by that manufacturer for field equipment. So our total investment in the program is looking at to be about $40,000 in field equipment and software to maintain the database that we have, be able to look back at the historic data, provide analyses, and also enter new data that is collected out from the field.
Is that the $38,150 number we have on our
That's
list?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So this data is used a variety of ways. You know, it's we've done analysis on the Little Klickitat to show cooling temperatures in the Little Klickitat. Was used over in the Rock Creek watershed basin to there was some work that was to move away from the 303D listing on the TMDL and go to a straight to implementation plan. It's often used by a variety of entities for salmon recovery, et cetera. And the reason that this was initially initiated through those watershed management plans is to have real world data to base decisions on. And I think that's still very valuable. We share our data out to a lot of different entities. And so that's valuable to landowners as well as agencies that use the information. So what we're asking is that the county continue to be a partner in our efforts in conservation and watershed management and help support that investment in the water quality monitoring program.
Mr. Christopher.
You touched on it right there. Continue to be a partner. This is a longstanding relationship the county has with the conservation district in this program, correct?
Yes.
good enough. That's my only question.
Commissioner Sauter, questions?
Well, follow-up language matters, continue to be a partner. So I see we see the $38,150 is the request to fund the $38,150 or a portion?
A
of that?
portion
A
of.
third.
Okay.
I guess that would be a good question. The way I read it was equal thirds. Did you have a different number in mind? Did you have it, we're only doing 10 grand as opposed to doing, 12.6?
The two conservation district boards are committed to maintaining this program because they know that they recognize the value of the program and the use by private landowners as well as other entities. And so they're moving forward regardless of the county's support. So I would leave it up to you guys to determine your level of support. We are using some base funding to make these purchases and invest in the program. So, those funds that could be used in a wide variety of ways are difficult to come up with. So we'd be happy to accept $38,000 if that's where you feel like you're at.
Yeah, I don't have $38,000. Which brings up my next question, is if we so chose to put this on the agenda to think about it for a week before we made a vote, where would those funds be coming from? And I would look and ask Mr. Economic Development if there's any part of his budget that's going to this, or do we need to find our own funding? Sorry, I probably should have left that for you, but that was a question I had.
I know nothing about this.
Okay, the funding, if we contribute, would be coming out of my natural resources budget, Fund 132. That budget, every year I put a little bit of money in there, or the board puts money in there so that I can pick up some projects.
You were listening this morning?
Yeah.
Some projects during the year. This year I've got about $23,000 that's available for me to do to projects that weren't anticipated when I put the budget proposal together last July. So we could fund that. I guess one other comment, we're looking at this $38,000, some portion of that potentially this year. But I think we talked before, there's an annual cost to this.
There is an ongoing maintenance cost, and we're just looking for the initial cost recovery at this point.
Okay.
In the past, ecology has funded a lot of this work, but the ecology programs have become more challenging to get funded because of increased buffer widths and reduced landowner participation.
More hoops you have to jump through that we don't want to jump.
And the administrative labor has increased considerably with those grant funding applications. So we do hope that this is further supported by ecology in the future, but it is not currently.
And note, like for Swale Creek, for example, and Rock Creek in particular, they're not compliance with the state water quality standards for temperature. The district has been doing a program they agreed to with ecology back in the 90s, and then we developed a straight implementation plan that includes monitoring. That's not been officially adopted, but we continue to implement it so that there's some work done to try to address temperature in those two basins. And if a TM deal comes up, we're hoping to get those plans adopted.
First question, are you still uploading all of your data to Ecology's sites for all the stream data?
No, only for the projects that are funded through ecology. And so that's where this software that we transitioned to allows us to have basically the same utility and function as uploading to ecology site in terms of analysis and long-term data management. But we are following the QAP standards that were developed by ecology, with the exception that we've reduced staff time commitment by not going out to streams that are intermittent and go dry. Ecology QAP required that you still made a monthly site visit even if the stream was dry. And we just know that, a lot of these cases in this arid environment, once those streams are dry, they're not going to wet up again until fall. So with that modification, we're still following the ecology QAP.
And I know in the past, when you had ecology grants, the county would put in some match, and that was usually my time and my, are we still doing that? Does Whitney go out at all with any of your staff to help out during high flow events or anything like that?
That hasn't happened, but a lot of turmoil and change and, reduced staffing at the conservation districts through COVID. So there's definitely our opportunity to partnership there if you or Whitney would like to come out and participate.
I would love to go back out and work in streams again.
I would do that right now too. I used to work in streams for a living. They were bigger streams, but.
I mean, I don't have any questions other than that. General sense from my seatmates so that we can direct staff.
I am fine with continuing to partner with those two organizations. I would be fine with seeing a number on the consent agenda that was up to equal to 1/3, which is $12,716.67. Any number under that, I would welcome on the agenda.
Yeah, I can support that. I can support that. That was my comment about being partners. Sometimes we have other organizations sometimes partner, our partnership is more than other people's partnership.
Our partnership is the wallet. And not a
Yeah,
voice.
that's sometimes our job is to write a check, and that's not, and I appreciate that that's not the case here.
Now this I think is, we use the data ourselves. So as we use the data ourselves, I think we should be pitching in for what we use of the data ourselves. So this is not, to me, funding an outside source for their project. It's paying our fair share for the part that we use of their project. That's the way I'm looking at it anyway.
And I will say, I know you're having some staffing changes coming up. It looks like you're buying a new flow meter. It would be good, and if director and staff would be willing to, when you're training the new person, to also, if we could send Whitney, so that if you have staff turnover in the future, at least you'd have someone else out there who can help train the new staff who would be available. That is part of our commitment to being a partner, because these dollars are our dollars as well. And COVID changed everything, but we're going to be unmasked here in 4 days, so I think it's a good time. And I know Whitney's busy, but you'll enjoy it more than anything else, trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. The new equipment, the new software is actually streamlined it quite a bit, so it reduces staff time, a lot easier to train. And I do have a conservation planner who's getting trained in the next few weeks before someone else leaves to carry that work in the interim between hiring someone new. So Whitney, if you have any time in the next few weeks, just get a hold of Angel and you're welcome to
Jump in and get your feet wet, so to say.
Actually, we're looking at dry and Butler Creek.
Any questions, thoughts from staff?
No, I appreciate you allowing me to partner with this. So, and Whitney getting trained is good.
All
Just a
right.
warning about carrying batteries.
Go forth and do good work. Thank you all.
Thanks, gentlemen.
So
Thanks,
we'll work
guys.
on an agreement sometime.
Hopefully you have something.
All right.
Template for just change things.
For temperature?
After the ice age was over.
Well, maybe 100 years ago. They say it used to run full 100 years ago, but that was also pretty close to an ice age.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you had a few more glaciers up there and a few more trees on the stream banks.
All right. Elected official report. Is the prosecuting attorney available? Or is he currently sitting in Superior Court? That's what I would guess.
Yep.
I believe it is still going, apparently. Okay. No report from the prosecuting attorney. I will contact him on the side. Any other business for the good of the order? No?
Nope.
No?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting. We have no workshop scheduled, but I would note that the Board of Commissioners are hosting an open house tonight, or this late afternoon and dedication of this new county services building, beginning at 4 o'clock. We will have an open house between 4 and 6 o'clock. So folks can come in. I guess we've got cake and cookies and we'll give tours and the folks can come in and see their new building.
I would second that very eloquent motion.
And I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Barta, for staying the whole time and being a part of county government, as well as everyone else on the phone and on Zoom world. Thank you all for tuning in to our regularly scheduled meeting. With that, I would, what?
Aye.
Did we do the ayes already?
No, I was speaking before I.
You're closing.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Mr.